and environmental safety of medicines, it was beyond me. I found it new and very intriguing. And then, of course, as always, Google Baba came to my rescue, and I explored a little and learned a little about it. And now I am here, all eager to know about the subject from the learned scholars that we have here. As you all can see here, and you all know, of course, we have gathered today for a conclave on environmental safety of medicines and medical practices, a holistic approach. The conclave has been organized by Bhai Veer Singh Sahitya Sadan in collaboration with Guru Har Krishan Medical Forum. Bhai Veer Singh Sahitya Sadan was established in the memory of the saint poet who is popularly remembered as the sixth river of Punjab. Under the patronage of Dr. Manmohan Singh Ji, the Sadan has emerged as the premier center of Punjabi language, literature and culture. Bhai Veer Singh's poems focus on nature and environment, and he saw the creator in his creation. Sadan has been focusing on promoting concern for environment, and therefore this joint function with Guru Har Krishan Medical Forum, which has been actually promoting to check growing degradation of environment and environmental safety of medicines. It is a matter of great pride for us that Padma Shri Dr. Randeep Guleria, Director, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, accepted our request to take out time from his busy schedule to be with us today as the keynote speaker for the event. Our other eminent speakers are also amidst us now, and we have a very conscious and a very eager audience waiting to listen to the speakers. But before we formally welcome Dr. Guleria and other guests, we would like to begin with a poem of Bhai Veer Singh Ji to be recited by Mrs. Taranjit Kaur and her group.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਦੁਨੀਆ ਮਿਲ ਕਲਗੀ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਮਿਲ ਕਲਗੀ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਮਿਲ ਕਲਗੀ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਮਿਲ ਕਲਗੀ ਵਾਲਿਆ कलगी वालिया मैं दिन नू आहा मार दी गिन तारे रात गुजार दी हाय रो रो जिगरा गालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया मैं तकदीरां तेरियां पाजोगी वाली फेरियां राह तक तक हाल गुंजालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया मैं सैया विच ना खेडदी मैं खूहों बिरहों दा गेड़दी विच तांगा जियोड़ा लालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया मैं तेनू नित चेतार दी एक पल भी नाए विसार दी जियो टोके कारी कर वारिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया कर मेरे इस योगन हार ते हुण छेतिया दीदार दे हे बख्श मिलावण वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया कोई रख दे हिम्मत ताने हाने कोई बन दे दावे माने हन मेरा सब कुछ बिरे हो हालिया हुनिया मिल कलगी वालिया कई जन्म गए तरसे दिया गया एवी सिख सिखे दिया के हा कर्मा पासा ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Thank you, Taranjit ji. Poetry actually provides solace, for it touches our heart deep down, and it has a lot of healing power. And the same healing power also resides within a doctor as he heals us through the potions and the medicines that doctors prescribe for us. But these very medicines may have hazardous effects on the environment, and that is what we are here to discuss today. But before we begin, we would like Dr. G.S. Grewal, President, Guru Har Krishan Medical Forum, and Dr. Jaspreet Singh ji, Honorary Secretary, Bhai Veer Singh Sahitya Sadan, to present to Dr. Randeep Guleria, our keynote speaker, with a token of our appreciation for his outstanding and commendable service to mankind as the Director of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, especially as the nation struggled with the havoc caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you so much, sir.
One second, please.
So, one moment. I request Mohinder Singh ji, Director Bhai Veer Singh Sahitya Sadan, to present his latest book, Guru Nanak, Life and Legacy, which was published as a part of the celebration of 550th birthday of Guru Nanak and released at the Rashtrapati Bhavan during the concluding function of the Sadan. Thank you, sir. I would now like to request Dr. G.S. Grewal, President Guru Har Krishan Medical Forum, to formally welcome the guests. Dr. Grewal graduated from Mamsi Maulana Azad Medical College and is a fellow of the College of General Practitioners of the Indian Medical Association. So I request you to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Ji. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. A very, very proud moment for all of us. Firstly, my respect and regards and welcome to Professor Randeep Guleria, Padma Shri Awardee, to have graced this conclave and encouraged us to take up the issue of discussion of such topics. And my most humble welcome to our mentor, Dr. I.P.S. Kalra sir, for having come despite being very young at about 25 with about 60 years of experience. That's what he is. He defeated the COVID in New York and has come all the way from there. Professor Daljit Singh, Professor of Cardiothoracic Surgery at G.V. Pant Hospital, and my dear friend Professor Rehan, the brain, the force, and the effort behind this entire thought process and execution is Professor Harmeet Rehan. We are just his soldiers. Well, there are few novelties of such a conclave. Topic scientific hai, but we are addressing everybody as Guru ki Sadh Sangat. So this mixture of science and Ruhaniyat is what is missing in public today. I was just speaking to Professor Guleria just now. From the blood, they have isolated plastics. Now, badi purani wo kahani si sadi kitab vich that somebody is sitting on a tree and cutting his own the same bark. Lagdi to badi mazakiya kahani hai, but are we not all doing the same thing today? The challenge is not in finding out what is happening. That can be found out. You have enough researchers like Professor Ryan and Professor Guleria and Professor Taranjit Singh who will find out, tell you. The challenge is in coming out of your comfort zone to not do that activity. There lies the challenge. मैं ये नहीं करूँगा. कैसे करेंगे? So conclaves like this are meant not only to get the information of what is the problem, but also to discuss what are we to do. We are becoming captives of our own narrow-minded thinking. नहीं, प्लास्टिक के ग्लास के बगैर कैसे खा सकते हैं, कैसे पी सकते हैं, इतना तो करना ही पड़ेगा, कन्वीनियंट पड़ा है. So that comfort zone चों निकल के nature ਦੇ ਨਾਲ जुड़ना, that requires a behavior change. And there is where the Gurbani comes in. The only route which helps a person proudly change his behavior. It can be done by legislature. हुने मास्क लगाने सी सरकार ने 2000 रुपए चलान कीता ना, क्योंकि टाइम नहीं सी लोकां नूं समझाउण नूं कि मास्क पाउणा जरूरी है. 10 विचों 4 बंदे ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ होणगे ਜਿਹੜੇ कि मास्क अपने आप पा लेणगे. अच्छा ठीक है, मास्क पाना चाहिए, पा लेणगे. 4 बंदे इस तरह होणगे, थोड़ा जिहा ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈਜਿਸਲੇਚਰ ਚਲਾਨ ਆ ਗਿਆ, ਪਾ ਲੈਣਗੇ. 3 ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਹਾਂਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਣਾ. So the only thing that can bring us back close to nature is change our behavior. उठना, सवेरे उठना बहुत औखा है. I don't hesitate to say, आजकल कोई celebration, you talk about a celebration and you talk it during Navratri, वो कहते नहीं नवरात्रि celebration होती नहीं. It is so mandatory, compulsory कि शराब होनी चाहिए, उसके बगैर celebration नहीं है. Look at the behavior change we have come into. 5 साल के बच्चे का बर्थडे है, तो मैं वो शगन पाउण गया बड़े साल पहला. मैं क्या जी बच्चा कितने है, कहता उन्होंने तो कंपोज दे के सुलाता, बाकी सारे शराबी होए. That is celebration. So what does that 5-year-old birthday boy know what is happening? So we have degraded our behavior to that extent that we are cutting our own roots. So therefore the importance is that all of you, when you hear from an expert, an international reputed person, Professor Guleria, उम्मीद करते हैं असी कि you become ambassadors of the message that we are actually harming ourselves. Because your best companion, which Gurbani teaches us, your best companion is yourself. So if you're able to look after yourself, you can look after anybody. So once again, a very warm and humble welcome to all of you. And I only wish and pray that all of you become ambassadors to spread the message that we need to change our behavior if we need to survive and live healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You've rightly said we need to change our behavior. ये wiring जो दिमाग की गड़बड़ हो गई है उसको ठीक करना ज़रूरी हो गया है. And very true, रूहानी और साइंस का amalgam है ये जो conclave है. I would now like to request Dr. Harmeet Singh, Secretary Guru Har Krishan Medical Forum, to introduce the theme of the conclave. Dr. Harmeet Singh Rehan is Director, Professor and Head, Department of Pharmacology, Lady Hardinge Medical College, New Delhi. He is widely published and has been severally awarded for his research and publications. He is a pioneer in generating organs from autogenous stem cell, coordinator, Pharmacovigilance and Materiovigilance Program of India. I request you, Dr. Rehan, to throw light on this very significant issue. Sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for candid introduction. Fateh Di Sanj, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We are very lucky that Honorable Dr. Randeep Guleria, Padam Shri, is with us. And with his presence, I'm very sure, as Dr. Grewal said, that each one of us will be ambassador of eco-pharmacovigilance or eco-earth in this. We will convert this lovely, only livable planet back to livable. It's not livable, I tell you. So we have to make it livable, and you all will work with like an ambassador of this. So according to Sikh scripture, humans create their surroundings as a reflection of their inner state. Current instability of the Earth's nature system is only a reflection of the flux and misery within human. The devastating barrenness of the Mother Earth imitates a spiritual emptiness within the human. So we have to improve ourselves. My Nanak wanted communities to have equal access to clean water as a source of life that brings food for both animal and human. This is illustrated by Guru Nanak's innumerous encounters during his travel, including the travel to Panja Sahib. Guru Nanak foresaw imminent danger of global warming and ecological devastating. That's why 500 years back, he showed his concern, and we have to revisit that. This aspect will be covered in elaborate with our guests, Dr. Rawail Singh and Dr. Rajwant Singh from US will connect with us. In English, we always say roses amid thorns, jahan gulab hota hai, wahan kaante bhi hote hain. Medicines have been boon for mankind and veterinary science. We all know that. They have done wonders. Though not fully, they have healed the illnesses, though not fully, to some extent. Along with beneficial effects, medicines are always associated with the adverse effects. No medicine in this world which doesn't have the adverse effects, both for us and the environment. We always see, मैं दवाई खादी ते रैशेस हो गए, परंतु दवाई दी वजह नाल मेरी मदर अर्थ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਰੈਸ਼ेस ਹੋਏ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਨਾ ਕਦੀ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਸੋਚਣ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈ. If we take some of the statistics of US, more than 100,000 tons of antimicrobial and more than 3 billion doses of painkillers are used only in US. ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਤੇ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਬੜਾ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਹੈ. Whatever drug we consume, it passes out of the body either as a metabolite or unchanged excretion. Drugs are usually water soluble and therefore they find their ways into the sewage. So industrial waste of the pharmaceutical companies. ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜਾ proud ਲੈਨੇ ਆ ਕਿ my country, my great India is supplying medicines to 2/3 of the world. Vaccines we are supplying, and I was in UK for one of the discussion. And I said, I'm not happy that we supply you 2/3 of the medicine. इससे जितनी wastage होती है वो भी आपको भेजनी पड़ेगी. Then I'll be happy to send that. वो गंदगी तो यहीं रह जाती है और गंदगी को हम बर्दाश्त करते हैं. तो वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड जो है ना वो स्मार्ट है. ऐसे नहीं है कि वो जेनरिक दवाई बना नहीं सकता है. So we have to think over this also, that next time when we export the medicine, we export the elute also along with the medicines. And so this comes in the sewage. From the sewage, it comes to the water body. From the water body, it comes back to our body. So whatever we throw, we take it back again, and we leave the traces in the aqua system, which fishes take. Frogs the multiplication बंद हो गया, fishes the masculinization हो गया, male finish the oral contraceptive दी वजह नाल feminization हो गया. And the most dangerous thing is, in a 50 years time, the sperm count of the man has gone by 50% down. This is the main concern. Infertility is, that's why we can see the IVF center mushrooming every corner of the city. We have seen cocaine in Po River of Italy and Thames. We have seen antidepressants, carbamazepine, anti-epileptic drug, lipid-lowering drugs in Niagara River. And so many other drugs which are present. So it's a serious concern. And serious concern why? When this water, contaminated water, a pregnant woman takes, how it will affect the baby in the womb is a serious concern which we have to see. We all have to think about it. So they take ignorant entry into the body, whatever we throw out. Since the thalidomide disorder, seal-like bodies, we all doctors know what the thalidomide disorder is. We developed so many pharmacovigilance strategies all across the world, but unfortunately, the effect of the drug on environment remained unaddressed all across the world. So this is a time for that. So decrease in number of vulture, गिद्ध जड़े दिखते सी आजकल नहीं दिखते ना, कित्थे चले गए? लाइफ स्टॉक ਨੂੰ ਪੇਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਡਿਕਲੋਫੇਨੈਕ ਦਾ ਇੰਜੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਲਗਾ ਦਿੰਨੇ ਆ. Then animal dies. Animal ਦਾ flesh vulture ਖਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, vulture ਮਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ renal failure ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ vulture ਦਾ. ਦੇਖੋ, because these drugs are tested on rat and some on the human. Before they come in the market, they had never tested on a vulture. So we lost the vulture. They are extinguishing now. So it's a serious concern. One Washington Times report I'll share with you, where they tested a water of wastewater from a plant near the industrial area of the South India, where elute of the 90 drug factories comes. That was tested and found antibiotic was present in that, and Dr. Ravinder Kaur is going to discuss the antibiotic in a length. I know she's a great expert, national level expert in that. And this antibiotic was going into a drain and was getting spewed into the one stream each day and exposing the 90,000 people of that city on that time is a serious concern. We all are taking antibiotic, means resistance is very important, and the level of this was 150 times more than what the levels were there in US at that time. Leftover medicines which we are working constitute another dominant cause of environmental contamination. So we have to see that how we manage that. We should not be ignorant about the contact lenses. What we do with the contact lenses, we take and throw it in the, flush them down. It goes to the aqua system, they break into a microchips, and the fishes take and they die. And 23 metric ton of contact lenses have been disposed of. Is not a small amount. There is a strategies we have to devise that how these contact lenses will be recycled. And there are things at its places which we need to see. So I'm glad that today all we are together. Bhaivir Singh Sadan has given us a lead, has taken a lead. I'm very sure we all will be with our young man, director of this place, Dr. Mahinder Singh ji. Is a big applaud to him, the way he comes, the energy which he has, and he has offered everything for this purpose, because Bhaivir Singh himself was very much concerned about the nature and the things. Further, Conclave is imbued with the passion of Bhaivir Singh ji for environment and nature, who had a passion for the environment and nature. He has successfully woven man and the nature together through his pen. So while creating a world, I'll conclude with this, as per the Gurbani, while creating the world, God has made earth a place to practice spirituality, which is we are losing, and we have to bring it back. So this step is, Conclave is a very small step in this direction, but very important step. I hope that we meet quarterly like this, or maybe biannually, to take a stock at what we have done and what we have to do. Thank you, each one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rehan. I really understand now that it's a much graver issue than it actually appears to be. I quote, "An honest approach to life and a complete devotion to my job is what spiritualism means to me," unquote, says Dr. Randeep Guleria, a karmyogi in the true sense of the word. Dr. Guleria, of course, needs no introduction. For the past 2 years, each one of us has sat glued to the television set day in and day out with rapt attention, listening to each and every word spoken by him as gospel. The man who steered the nation, guiding, enlightening, assuring as we passed through the most harrowing times in our history, as the globe reeled under the ravage of the pandemic COVID-19. An alumnus of St. Columba's School, IGMC Shimla, and then PGI Chandigarh, Dr. Guleria is presently the director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. A pulmonologist, he is credited with the establishment of India's first Center for Pulmonary Medicines and Sleep Disorders at AIIMS. He has been conferred with several awards, including the prestigious Padma Shri in 2015. He has over 49 book chapters and more than 400 articles in reputed international and national journals to his credit. And he has co-authored the book Till We Win, India's Fight Against the COVID-19 Pandemic. That's his latest one. Dr. Guleria is also associated with the WHO, with SAGE, with International Atomic Energy Agency, and with several other agencies. He's a member of many key committees in the Government of India, a fellow and member of several national and international bodies, including National Academy of Medical Sciences. He's on the editorial board of a number of journals. The good list can go on and on. But I would like to add here that Dr. Guleria is also a very keen environmentalist and has been actively participating in various environmental causes and has been an expert at various environmental forums, and he regularly participates in environmental awareness programs. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the much awaited keynote address by none other than Dr. Randeep Guleria.
Thank you for your kind words. Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal. At the onset, let me thank Dr. Mahinder Singh, Dr. Harmeet Singh, Dr. Grewal, Dr. Kalra, Dr. Baljit Singh, and the entire members of the Bhai Veer Singh Sahitya Sadan and Guru Har Krishan Medical Forum for inviting me for this very important issue, which is looking at safety of our environment. I'm going to be talking on a little bit of a broader subject, but I think it's very important for us to really understand what we mean by the environment and how we can have a holistic approach. One of them, of course, is the use of antibiotics that we are using. Okay. So can I have the next slide? So as has already been mentioned, अगर हम देखें, last century our environment has changed as never before. 100 साल में बहुत फर्क पड़ा है, and rapid and unplanned industrialization, especially in developing countries, has altered our environment in a negative manner. It is now being recognized, and we have seen this even during the pandemic, that changes in the general environment is linked to many chronic and infectious diseases. So a lot of diseases are actually basically the cause of what we have done to the environment, and that is something that we need to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Next. So if you look at the current era, we have industrialization and urbanization, we have population explosion, pollution, which is both air, water, soil. Infectious and non-infectious diseases are increasing. We are seeing a large number of non-infectious diseases like diabetes, cancers, heart diseases. And then we have infections also like pandemics happening. And we also have multi-drug resistant antibiotics. I see many patients in my ICU where we find that they are resistant to all antibiotics, and we call that multi-drug resistant infection. That is also a big problem. There are also other things which are happening which are relatively good.
There is increasing environmental awareness. We are all working on that. As was mentioned, I try and do my bit. We started what we called the Green School Initiative. We used to go to different schools and we covered almost 30,000 children in trying to increase the awareness of their carbon footprint. So in various schools, we try and make them aware how they can decrease pollution, how they can walk to school, encourage their parents to go to the market, walk to the market rather than going by using a vehicle and things like that. So this we had called a Green School Initiative, which we had done in collaboration with the Delhi University students also. So very enthusiastic young students, and I think the young generation has a lot of energy which we should tap as far as this looking at our environment and trying to improve our environment is concerned. We have fitness, we have technological boom, and there is faster communication which really helped as far as the pandemic was concerned. All of this has led to this concept of One Health, and I think this is something we must look at when we talk of our planet and we talk of the environment. And this is a collaborative efforts of multiple disciplines working locally, nationally and globally to obtain optimal health of people, animal and our environment. We must look at it in a holistic manner, and as was being mentioned, when we talk of antibiotics, it has to be looked at not only in humans but also in plants and animals. And therefore, we have to start looking at health of humans, animals, plants, environment and microbes. Next slide, please. And therefore, this is a concept of One Health. We should look at the health of the planet rather than health of humans. Hippocrates actually said this, that on air, water and places, diseases might be associated with physical environment. So if your physical environment is good, you will not have diseases. If your physical environment is not good, diseases will multiply and become much more. Next slide. European practitioners also in the 17th and 18th century advocated for the idea of human, animal and environmental health are linked, and we must look at it in a holistic manner. Next slide. And even if you go to our own shloks, in Hinduism there are several shloks and mantras which are chanted for the well-being of the whole universe, where we accept the fact that we are part of one cosmic universe, and our health and the health of animals, the health of plants, the health of the environment is all linked, and they cannot be looked at separately. If we are going to sacrifice the health of others, it will have an effect on our own health also. Next slide. So therefore, there is a concept that we should now start practicing, and that is the concept of One Health, healthy people, healthy animals and healthy environment. And in 2003, this term One Health was used, where it was said that humans and livestock or wildlife health cannot be discussed in isolation anymore, and there is just one health. And I think the pandemic has made this very, very apparent, and I'll come to that. All the outbreaks that we have seen in this century, in the 21st century, whether it be SARS, H5N1, which is known as bird flu, Ebola, MERS, H1N1, which is known as swine flu, even we had an outbreak of Nipah virus, and we've also had outbreaks of Zika virus. All of them have an animal or zoonotic origin, animal or bird. So unless we are able to look at it from that point of view, we will continue to have outbreaks like this and pandemics. More than 8 to 10 outbreaks have happened in the last 20 years only, from 2001 to 2020, 2019. Next slide. And therefore, we must now start looking at One Health, and I think all of us should work in this direction to achieve the best health outcome for people, animals, plants and environments. And people who protect humans, animals and environment should actually come together in this whole concept of One Health. And this, I think, is something that we should start talking of. Next. So we have a shared environment, we have shared medicines and intervention, and we also have shared food and food systems. And if you look at it in that point, from that manner, then it becomes even more important to understand that diseases which happen in animals, which happen in, let's say, fishes, or happen in plants or in birds, are going to be linked to diseases in humans. Similarly, it is going to affect the food that we eat. And these diseases are also going to be part of what we call the medicines that we give. So the whole environment has to be looked at holistically, whether we look at animals, plants, or humans for that matter. So One Health affects, it has an effect because of pollution, because of lack of sanitation, because of chemicals that we use, because of radiation. Community noise affects a lot of animals and plants. And then climate change, etc., also has a major effect. Next slide, please. And this leads to increasing respiratory diseases, increasing heart problems, neurological diseases, reproductive diseases, as was being mentioned, and also has a genetic effect. And we are seeing more and more inborn errors occurring because of exposure to the environment. So all of this is something that we need to keep in mind. And I'll just touch upon this. So if you look at air pollution, which is one area that I'm interested in because I've been working a lot on this and we've done a lot of research on this. We've shown in Delhi for many years that when pollution levels are high, hospital admissions of acute respiratory problem in children and adults jumps up. And we've shown that by following our hospital admissions in children and adults for 2-3 years. And this is a project which was supported by ICMR. We've also done a recent study where we've looked at individual asthmatics in pregnant women, and again trying to show the effect of pollution in pregnant women and in asthmatic children. So here if you look at it, all our emissions which are related to pollution have an effect on material, animals, humans, plants and ecosystem, and the visibility and climate. So we actually focus a lot only on humans and say, okay, it has behavioral effect, it has neural effect, it has pulmonary effect, cardiovascular, reproductive and others. But it also has an effect on animals, plants and our ecosystem. And that is something that we need to keep in mind, that we are looking at we should look at a much larger picture than just looking at the effect of humans. And we know that effects of worsening air pollution can affect the health. There are estimated that there are almost 7 million premature deaths worldwide annually. The recent report put it around a little over 6 million. Climate is affected. There is accelerated Arctic warming. Foods have been affected because there is reduced global production, crop production. It affects our water, it affects energy. So again, it's important to look at it holistically, that pollution doesn't affect only our health, it affects the entire environment, which has an indirect effect as far as humans are concerned. Next slide. This is one paper that I'd like to quote, which is published in 2020, which was the global burden of 87 risk factors in 204 countries. This was published in the Lancet, looking at from 1990 to 2019. Next slide, please. And what it showed, and this looked at in women and in males, and this looked at attributable deaths occurring during this period in time. And if you look at the top four, the fourth, both in men and women, the fourth common cause is actually air pollution. So air pollution is contributing significantly to death. Dietary risk factors, high carbohydrate intake, high blood pressure are also risk factors, but this was a significant risk factor. Next slide. If you look at what we call disability adjusted life years, again, air pollution was again on the top, the number 3 as far as women were concerned, and same as far as men were concerned, it was number 4 in terms of the risk factors. What this paper showed was that the largest increase in this period of time from 1990 to 2019 in risk exposure were for ambient particulate matter, that is air pollution, drug use, high fasting plasma sugar and high body mass index. All of these are preventable things. These are issues that we could address and prevent and therefore decrease the burden of disease. Next slide, please. This is a paper published by the Health Effect Institute in 2020, the state of global air. And I'll just briefly just suggest again, if you look at this, it calculated that in 2019, 6.67 million people died of air pollution. This is more than, this is in 1 year. This is more than the current number of people who we have documented to have died because of COVID-19, just to put it in perspective. So there is a huge burden of disease as far as air pollution is concerned, which is affecting our environment, and which I just showed to you is infecting our environment not from the point of view of only our health, but how it is changing the entire ecosystem is something that we need to keep in mind. And if you start looking at, this is the global map of population weighted average PM 2.5 concentration, the darker the color, the more the exposure. And you can see South Asia and especially India and its neighbors are actually having the maximum number of exposure as far as air pollution is concerned. And this is something which has happened over a period of time, that it has not really come down. If at all, it has tended to go to increase as far as the pollution is concerned. One good part is, and this is because of a lot of programs that have been introduced, that there is a decline as far as indoor air pollution is concerned, the use of solid fuel is concerned, and we've moved from wood and cow dung to a lot of LPG being used in rural India. And that has helped to show some degree of decline as far as indoor air pollution is concerned, but we still have a huge problem as far as outdoor air pollution is concerned. This is a paper which was published in, again in Lancet Planet Earth, in which many of us contributed. And again, this looked at burden of disease across different states in India in 2017. And here it estimated that 1.24 million deaths occurred in India in 2017, which could be attributable to air pollution. Again, a huge number, 0.67 million, 0.67 million from outdoor air pollution and 0.48 million from household air pollution. So huge burden of disease, which we are still there. And I call this a silent killer, because you can say so-and-so died because of COVID-19, so-and-so died because of dengue. You can't really point and say so-and-so died because of air pollution. It has its indirect effect, and therefore it's a silent killer. And that's why it becomes all the more difficult to influence policymakers and others to start really looking at it from a serious point of view. Interestingly, what this paper also showed, that now if you look at what we call the disability adjusted life years, air pollution is causing more problem in lower respiratory tract infections, in chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, in heart disease than the use of tobacco. We always say focus a lot on tobacco cessation, smoking cessation. But this paper showed that we have shifted the burden of disease as far as disability is concerned in these area has shifted more towards air pollution than towards the use of tobacco. So if we are focusing a lot on smoking cessation, we should also focus a lot on decreasing air pollution, because that disease burden is now becoming bigger than what we are seeing because of tobacco use. And we all know that PM 2.5, and this is something which has been shown even during the pandemic, and I'll come to that, causes oxidative stress. It affects not only our heart, it causes inflammation in the blood vessels, and there is endothelitis, inflammation, cytokines are released, and this causes not only more chances of heart attack, but causes lung damage. And there is some data which is also emerging that cancers also increase significantly because of what we see because of this. Extremes of age, infants and children, elderly, pregnant women, and those who have underlying disease are the high risk group, and they have a lot of problem, and again, lot of data as far as this is concerned. I won't go into this, but a large number of diseases have been linked, from premature deaths to cancers to heart disease to increased admissions, and a lot of studies have been done in India to show that. A study from Chennai actually showed that women who were pregnant and were exposed to higher levels of air pollution, both indoor and outdoor, the baby born had low birth weight and they had more preterm weight. This was a study done from Chennai. So there is a lot of data which is coming out to suggest that this exposure to air pollution, especially when it's a chronic exposure, can have a significant effect, and that is why we need to really focus a lot on this. Again, the same paper, percentage of global deaths from specific causes attributable to air pollution are significant across the board. It's from COPD, diabetes, heart disease, low respiratory tract infection, cancer, strokes, and neonatal death. A significant contribution occurs because of air pollution. So I think we need to address this. Now, what was the effect of air pollution as far as COVID was concerned? There was a good effect also. Many people found that levels of air pollution came down because of the lockdown and other things. But in areas where air pollution was high, it was associated with more COVID mortality. This is a paper which was published even during the SARS outbreak, and it clearly showed in a linear fashion that in cities in China, where there was a higher degree of air pollution, there were more deaths. A more recent study during COVID-19 from Italy again looked at the effect of air pollution and COVID-19 related mortality, and it also clearly showed that in those regions in Italy where air pollution levels were high, they had higher deaths as far as COVID-19 was concerned. And just recently, last month, in March, there has been a paper published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Medicine, which again has shown the same thing, that long-term air pollution exposure in COVID-19 from New York, and they found that among patients hospitalized with COVID-19, a higher long-term PM 2.5 exposure level was associated with an increased risk of mortality and ICU admission. So not only are we seeing more problem as it is because of pollution, but even during the pandemic, areas which had high levels of air pollution were associated with higher deaths. And I think that is something that we need to keep in mind. But like I said, we need to look at it holistically. If you look at the effect of air pollution on plants, there is a lot of data emerging which suggests that whether it be stomatal blockage, chlorosis, necrosis, disruption of their microbiota, or interference with various factors which are part of plant growth are very, very important and are affected as far as air pollution is concerned. I had asked a group from Delhi University, because this is not my area of research, to do a project, and they are doing that. They are collecting samples of soil and plant in Delhi during various months, and they did this during the lockdown when levels of pollution was less. And once the lockdown got opened, every few months they would take samples from different areas to see what happens to the plant as far as the stress is concerned when pollution, because the lockdown gave us a sort of a natural environment to do research as far as air pollution was concerned, because air quality came down and then went back high up again. So let's see what the result shows. Next slide, please. But there is enough data to suggest that air pollution has an effect on roadside plantation, and this then has an effect as far as plant microbiome is concerned, and this indirectly leads to disrupted plant health, and this indirectly affects human health also. So again, the whole concept of One Health becomes very, very important. We should look at it in a more holistic manner. And then One Health has become more important, like I said, because of zoonotic public health emergencies. And if we look at what has happened over so many years, we've had so many outbreaks which are basically outbreaks which have happened because of animal-human interaction. Whether we talk of the Spanish flu, HIV, Ebola, SARS, MERS, COVID-19, all of them have happened because of viruses jumping species and then developing the ability of good human-to-human spread. So you have a, let's say, a animal virus, because of close contact and many factors, it jumps species, it comes into humans, and then it evolves so that now it can spread amongst humans and becomes a human virus, and that has led to so many outbreaks and pandemics. And like I said, if you look at the last 20 years, what we find is that there has been so many outbreaks in this last 20 years which are linked to zoonotic infection, whether it be coronavirus, whether it be influenza, alpha virus, Ebola, various other viruses, dengue and others, all of them have actually a link which is zoonotic, and then they have come to humans. And that is why in the current era it is becoming more and more important for us to look at health in a holistic manner. So why is this happening? This is a paper I wrote in 2018, 100 years after the flu pandemic, that India is still vulnerable. And this was analysis that we had done. I had done this with Dr. Lalit Khan, that in 2018, when we are looking at 100 years after the Spanish flu pandemic, we still were not prepared for a pandemic. Little did we realize that we will have a pandemic in a very short time, but at that point in time, it was just to say that we need to be prepared much more. Next slide. So why is this increasing outbreak that we're seeing, and why should we start talking of One Health and environmental health now? And that is because there is increasing infectious diseases which are happening because of trade, travel, connectivity, growing urbanization, encroaching into new environment, and because of global warming. Next slide. Now, if we look at mankind, through most of history, humans have actually lived in small bands. We stayed in our own area, we stayed in our own country, we stayed in our own district. We never traveled like we've been traveling now. And now in the last 20, 30 years, the world has become a small village. Within hours, we can travel from one part of the world to the other. And as we travel, we will take the infections with us. So Ebola used to be linked or was found only in parts of Africa. But because of travel, now Ebola gets carried, and we had cases of Ebola being reported from different parts of the world. Because the person who gets infected in the incubation period will carry the infection with him, and that will happen in that other area. This is how SARS happened. Started in Hong Kong, in South China in Hong Kong. One person who had SARS infection was coughing in a hotel. He crossed another Canadian who was walking, and they crossed the hotel corridor. The Canadian got the infection. He took the flight in the evening and went to Canada, and there was an outbreak, and people didn't realize that this is SARS, and therefore a number of healthcare workers died because of the rapid spread of the infection. So I think we must understand that. There's also growing challenge with urbanization. More and more urbanization is happening, which is unplanned, and this is actually affecting sanitation. This is leading to more vector-borne diseases. We're seeing more dengue, Zika, chikungunya because of all of this. And I think this is another issue that we need to sort of address. And therefore, crowding has happened much more. And this is a common scene that we'll see in any part of India. Even if you go to the airport now, it's as crowded as a bus station or even the railway station. And this gives an opportunity for infections to spread much more rapidly. Global warming I won't touch upon because this is a whole subject in itself, but that is also contributing a lot to what we're seeing in our environment. And therefore, like I said, zoonotic contact continues to generate more epidemics, and we need to understand this, that unless we start looking at animal health, plant health, we will not be able to address this issue in a holistic manner. What has been said is that by protecting animals, we preserve the future. 60% of human pathogens are of animal origin. 5 of every new human diseases appear each year, and 20% of animal production losses are caused by diseases globally. So there is a huge need for us to really address the issue of One Health. We also have the issue of reverse zoonosis, and this is very important for us to keep in mind, because we feel that we are getting everything from animals, but humans have also given a lot of things to animals. This is for just the phylogenetic tree of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Very often we said TB came from animals to humans, that bovine tuberculosis was there in animals and cows, and we got it from cows, that tuberculosis was there. But if you look at the phylogenetic tree, Mycobacterium tuberculosis has the largest phylogenetic tree, and subsequent deletions have led to Mycobacterium bovis, which is bovine tuberculosis. What it clearly shows is that actually humans gave tuberculosis to animals rather than the other way around. So this is also reverse zoonosis, that rather than animals giving disease to us, we also have given diseases to animals. And this happened also during the COVID pandemic, that this has been reported that tigers and lions who were tested COVID-19 positive in the zoo in New York, and they got the infection from the zookeeper who was COVID positive and who was looking after the animals, and he gave the infection to the animals. So it is a movement both ways as far as infection is concerned, from animals to humans and from humans to animals. The other important thing as far as One Health is concerned, which is already discussed, is the whole issue of antimicrobial resistance. Here again, when we have the use of antibiotics, whether it be in animals, whether it be then going into wastewater, or contaminating the treatment plants, all of this, and antimicrobial misuse as far as doctors are concerned, all of this is leading to antimicrobial resistance and multi-drug resistant pathogens, because these antibiotics enter the food chain and then cause resistance as far as various pathogens are concerned. And I think this is another issue that needs to be addressed, and again it can only be addressed if we look at it holistically with the whole concept of One Health. If you just look at antimicrobial resistance as far as humans are concerned, and not look at animal, poultry or other areas, I think that will not be doing justice to the whole concept. So again, very important to remember that antibiotic use in humans, antibiotic use in livestock and animals, and import of livestock and food all leads to spread of antimicrobial resistance. And to prevent it, we need to have clean food and water, responsible use of antibiotics, vaccination, hygiene, and good communication between different stakeholders if we really want to address this issue. So I think this itself is a very, very important issue. Therefore, I'd just like to, the main aim that I wanted to really have as far as this talk was concerned was just to say that when we talk of our environment and the health, we should look at it more holistically rather than looking at human health only. And therefore, environmental changes have had a major impact on health and wellness of the planet. And this is something that we need to keep in mind. Plants, man, animal cohabit and share resources, and in turn influence each other. And I think unless we understand that, we will not be able to address the whole issue as far as health is concerned. Many microbes infect animals and humans alike, and they share the ecosystem and resources. And any change in one of them will influence the change in others. And therefore, as we start having urbanization, encroachment into areas which are dominated by animals, we will have viruses which will jump species and cause outbreaks as far as humans are concerned. Also, ambient air pollution and household air pollution has a major effect on human health, and this is another thing that I wanted to touch upon. And I think for all of us who are here as experts in different areas, there is a need for public health people for animal health people, physicians, clinicians, and environmentalists to start talking to each other, developing strategies of how we can make this planet more healthy, make our environment better, not only for us, but for the future generation. So our health and the planet's health actually depends on all of us. Thank you very much. So there are studies. There is a study which was published from Japan, which showed that influenza also came down because of the wear of masks, and there was the time when mask wearing was very aggressively followed with social distancing, physical distancing and hand washing, that there was significant decline as far as other viral infections were concerned. People are trying to collect some data from tuberculosis point of view, because tuberculosis also is an airborne infection. There is some data that mask does help, but compliance with wearing a mask becomes more and more difficult as people's behavior or attitudes change.
Thank you, Dr. Guleria, for a very informative presentation. And if we just take back that it is one health, the health of the entire planet that matters, I think if we just remember that, it may go a long way in making the earth a better planet, a more green, a more blue planet. We've been very selfish, we've been very self-centered as a human race, and we have actually soiled the plant life and the animal life as well. But COVID was also a result of what we have been doing.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ
The
ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ
pandemic also gave us the hybrid mode. And we have with us Dr. Rajwant Singh, President EcoSikh USA, joining us today online. EcoSikh is a US-based global Sikh environmental organization fighting climate crisis. Dr. Rajwant Singh is the founder and president of the organization, and he is also the chairman of the Sikh Council on Religion and Education, communications director of the Sikh Human Development Foundation, and secretary of the Guru Gobind Singh Foundation in Maryland. And he will talk to us about the Sikh Guru's concern for environment. Over to you, sir.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਮੈਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਹਰਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਫੋਰਮ ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਦਨ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਮਹਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਹਰਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਦਾਸ ਨੂੰ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਕਰ ਸਕਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਟਾਈਮਲੀ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਰੱਖੀ ਹੈ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਆਪਣਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਸਰ ਕਰੇ ਇਸ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਸ ਸੰਸਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਟੀਚਿੰਗਸ ਨੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਰਤ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਾਈ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਤੁਕ ਨੂੰ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਿਪੀਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਪਵਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਣੀ ਪਿਤਾ ਮਾਤਾ ਧਰਤ ਮਹਤ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕਮਾਲ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਪਿਓ ਦੀ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਆਪਣੇ ਟੀਚਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਸਪੈਕਟ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੀਆਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਦਾਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਇਹ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਕਿਸਮ ਦਾ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵਾਕਈ ਪਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਤਾ ਜਾਣ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਸਪੈਕਟਫੁਲੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਟਰੀਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਏਅਰ ਹੈ ਵਿੰਡ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਕਈ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਧਰਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਂ ਜਾਣ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਸਾਰ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਲਈ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਤਤਪਰ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸੋ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਸਮਝਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦੀ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਮਾਂ ਪਿਓ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਦਾ ਖਿਲਵਾੜ ਹੋਵੇ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ sensitive ਹੋਈਏ towards these gifts of nature that ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ has provided ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਬਲਹਾਰੀ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਵਸਿਆ ਤੇਰਾ ਅੰਤ ਨਾ ਜਾਈ ਲਖਿਆ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਗगन मैं थाल रव चंद दीपक बने तारका मंडल जनक मोती धूप मन आन लो पवन चवरो करे सगल बन राय फुलंत ज्योति. This is the ending prayer. This is the ending hymn of a Sikh life. When we go to bed, we recite this hymn. Now again, Guru Sahib is trying to connect us with a wider perspective in the universe. ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜੇ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਅਤ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਸਫਲ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਹੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਝਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਦੇਖ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ, ਦੇਖ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਲ ਪਰੋਸਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਕੁਦਰਤ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਰੀ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਡਾਂਸ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਸੈਲੀਬ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਤੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਜੁੜਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਕੱਲ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਫੇਰ ਆਏਗੀ, you will have the chance to experience life in a different way. And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj ने एक बहुत सोहना thought process ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ, ਕਰਮ ਪੇੜ ਸ਼ਾਖਾ ਹਰੀ ਧਰਮ ਫੁੱਲ ਫਲ ਗਿਆਨ, ਕਿ be like a tree. What kind of tree? Every tree gives us something in return. When we go near the tree, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਛਾਂ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਕੂਨ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ, ਫਲ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ, ਫਰੂਟ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ, ਫੁੱਲ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਸੁਗੰਧੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਪੰਛੀ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਲੋਕ ਛਾਂ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਨੇ। ਕੀ ਤੂੰ ਅਜਿਹਾ ਦਰਖਤ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੈ? ਸੋ ਤੇਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਰਮ ਨੇ, ਤੇਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਨੇ, ਆਰ ਦੇ ਕਾਈਂਡ ਐਕਸ਼ਨਸ? ਆਰ ਦੇ ਹੈਲਪਿੰਗ other people? So karam paid shakha hari. When you become a tree which is benevolent, which is always giving love to everything around itself, similarly ਜਦੋਂ ਤੂੰ ਐਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਰੁੱਖ ਬਣੇਗਾ ਤੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਹੀ ਤੇਰੀਆਂ ਬ੍ਰਾਂਚਸ ਬਣ ਜਾਏਗਾ। ਧਰਮ ਫੁੱਲ, ਤੇ ਅਸਲੀ ਧਰਮ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਫਲ ਗਿਆਨ, ਇਹੀ ਵਿਜ਼ਡਮ ਹੈ। ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫੇਰ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਸੈਂਟਰਲ ਰੋਲ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਸਾਰੀ ਸਮਝਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਸਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਫਿਰ ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾਨਕ ਹਰੇ ਨਾ ਸੁੱਕਈ, ਜੇ ਐਦਾਂ ਰਹੇਗਾ ਤੇ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਤੂੰ ਸੁੱਕੇਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹਰਿਆਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਰਹੇਗਾ, ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਖੁਸ਼ ਰਹੇਗਾ। ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਨੇ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ, ਦੇਖ ਫੂਲ ਫੂਲ ਫੁੱਲੇ ਅਹੰਗ ਤਿਆਗ ਤਿਆਗੇ, ਆਪਣਾ ਗੁਮਾਨ ਛੱਡ, ਅਹੰਗ ਛੱਡ, ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਤੂੰ ਲਾਈਫ ਨੂੰ ਫੁੱਲੀ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਦੇਖ ਹਰ ਪਾਸੇ ਸਪਰਿੰਗ ਹੈ, ਹਰ ਪਾਸੇ ਬਸੰਤ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਹਰੇਕ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਓਨਲੀ ਹੈਵ 10 more years to save Mother Earth for future generations. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਧਰਤੀ ਦਾ ਤਾਪਮਾਨ ਬੜੀ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਵੱਧਦਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਦਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ। ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ, ਉੱਤਰੀ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉੱਤਰਾਖੰਡ ਤੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਫਲੱਡਸ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਬਾੜ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਮਡ ਸਲਾਈਡਸ ਆ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਕਿੰਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗਰੀਬ ਲੋਕ ਇਸ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਮਾਰ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਰ ਬਣ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੋਸਟਲ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੇ, ਬੰਬੇ ਹੈ, ਕੈਲਕਟਾ, ਢਾਕਾ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਣਗੇ if the sea level rises. And there were 35 more countries in the entire world which will go completely underwater. So ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪੋਲੂਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਗੰਦ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਮਨ ਹੈ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਮੈਨੇ ਫੋਕਸਡ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਰਾਮ ਮਿਲੇ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਲੈਸਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਹਰਰਾਏ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੇ, 6ਵੇਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਬਾਲ ਹਰਰਾਏ ਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤੁਰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਪੈਰ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੋ, ਆਲਾ ਦੁਆਲਾ ਦੇਖੋ, ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। ਸੋ ਉਹੀ ਲੈਸਨ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੀਵਨ 'ਚ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਵੀਰੋ ਤੇ ਭੈਣੋ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਦਿਆਂ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਈਕੋ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ 2009 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦਾ ਮੇਨ ਮਕਸਦ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੇ ਜੋ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵਿਰਸੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਸਿੱਖਿਆਵਾਂ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਰਿਤ ਕਰੀਏ, ਪਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕਾਰਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਯਤਨਸ਼ੀਲ ਹੋਣ ਲਈ ਪ੍ਰੇਰਿਤ ਕਰੀਏ। ਸੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਦਿਆਂ ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ 36 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ 400 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸੇਕਰਡ ਫੋਰੈਸਟ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਜੰਗਲ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਹਰਿਆਣਾ, ਰਾਜਸਥਾਨ, ਦਿੱਲੀ, ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ, ਮਹਾਰਾਸ਼ਟਰ, ਗੁਜਰਾਤ, ਹਰ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹ ਲਗਾਏ ਨੇ। ਤੇ 99% ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਰੁੱਖ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਲਹਿਲਹਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। these are all native species, ਜਿਹੜੇ trees ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਬਹੁਤੇ 90% ਅਲੋਪ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ। many of these trees you will never find anywhere। ਤੇ ਇਹ trees ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਚਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਲੱਭਿਆ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਫੋਰੈਸਟ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਾਇਓਡਾਇਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤੂ ਪੰਛੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਕਦੀ ਦੇਖੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ। ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ 2 ਜੰਗਲ ਲਗਾਏ ਨੇ, ਤਿਲਕ ਨਗਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਬਸੰਤ ਵਿਹਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਇਸ ਬਹਾਰ ਦਾ ਨਜ਼ਾਰਾ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੰਛੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤੂ ਛੋਟੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਮਧੂਮੱਖੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਕੀੜੇ ਮਕੌੜੇ ਭਮੱਕੜ ਤਿਤਲੀਆਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਡਾਂਸ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਈਏ ਤੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ wants us to celebrate, nature invites us to experience life in a very beautiful manner। so ਸਾਡੀ ਇਨਵੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਕਾਰਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੁੜੋ। every person can plant not just one tree but they can plant a forest of 550 trees। this is dedicated to the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj। so ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਕਾਰਜ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣੋ। ਐਂਡ ਮੈਂ ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਾਹਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਲੁਧਿਆਣੇ ਦੇ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀਅਲ ਏਰੀਏ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਵੈਰੀ ਪੋਲੂਟਡ ਏਰੀਏ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਜੰਗਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਗਾਇਆ ਸੀ 2 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਜੰਗਲ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਬਹਾਰ ਹੈ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੰਛੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਗੀਤ ਸੁਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਅਸੀਂ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਨੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਪਲੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਵਾਈਟ ਹਾਊਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਪਲੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਦਿਖਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਦੇਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੀੜਾ ਚੁੱਕ ਲਿਆ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਯੋਗਦਾਨ ਪਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਆਓ ਦੇਖੋ ਜੀ ਇਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ। ਆਪ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।
Thank you so much. He's left, but this was really commendable work. So the first takeaway, one, health, and the second, let's plant a forest. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸੈਕਟਰੀ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਮੈਨੇਜਮੈਂਟ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੋਨੀ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਨ। I extend a very warm welcome to him. Thank you for joining us. Our next speaker for the day is Dr. Rawail Singh. Dr. Rawail Singh has been actively promoting language, literature and culture as Secretary of the Punjabi Academy, Delhi, and later as Professor of Punjabi at the University of Delhi. He is actively involved with the activities of Bhai Veer Singh Sahitya Sadan, New Delhi, as convener of its academic programs. Professor Rawail Singh will acquaint us with the eco-consciousness of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
Respected Dr. Guleria, ਭਾਈ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਹਿਤ ਸਦਨ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਹਰਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਫੋਰਮ ਦੇ ਆਫਿਸ ਬੀਅਰਰਸ, ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਵਿਦਵਾਨ ਸੱਜਣੋ ਤੇ ਦੋਸਤੋ, ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਬੈਠਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਗੁਲੇਰੀਆ ਬੋਲ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੇ ਆਊਟਮੈਨ ਆਊਟ ਹੈ, ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ। ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਉਹੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਰੈਪੀਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਜਾਂ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਗਿਆਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਅੱਗੇ ਫੈਲ ਰਿਹਾ। ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਭ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੁਣੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਰਾਜਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਵੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਏ ਆ, ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਪਵਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਣੀ ਪਿਤਾ ਮਾਤਾ ਧਰਤ ਮਹਤ। ਸੋ ਜੋ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਸਮੂਹ ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤੂ ਬਨਸਪਤੀ ਤੇ ਖੁਦ ਮਾਨਵ ਜਾਤੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਨਿਰਭਰ ਹੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਭ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਕਰੀਏ। ਜੋ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀਜ਼ ਆਈਆਂ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਉਸ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀਜ਼ ਨੇ, ਸਾਇੰਸ ਨੇ, ਨਵੀਆਂ ਜੋ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟਸ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਵਸੀਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੰਨੀ ਲੁੱਟ ਖਸੁੱਟ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜੋ ਭਾਣਾ ਵਰਤ ਰਿਹਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਕੌਨਸ਼ੀਅਸਨੈਸ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਸੇਧ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹੈ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਡਿਸਕੋਰਸ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਰੋਲ ਨਿਭਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਸੀ ਜਾਂ ਕੀ ਰੋਲ ਨਿਭਾਇਆ ਉਹਨੇ, ਉਹਦੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਇੱਕ ਚੇਤਨਾ ਜਗਾ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਰਾਜਵੰਤ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਵਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਣੀ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੇ ਸੰਦਰਭ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸੀ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਅਤੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਲਈ, ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਲਈ, ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਲਈ ਵੱਧ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਅਤੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ। ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੋਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੁਣੀਆਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਰਾਜਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ, ਡਾਕਟਰ ਗੁਲੇਰੀਆ ਦੀਆਂ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੀ ਯੂਨੀਕਨੈਸ ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਬਣਦੀ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਇੱਕ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੁਛ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਈਟਸ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਅਤੇ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੇ ਪੈਰਲਲ ਸਿੱਖ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਮਸਲੇ ਬਾਰੇ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਟਾਈਮ ਅਤੇ ਸਪੇਸ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ, ਉਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਵੈਸਟ ਦਾ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਸਿੱਖਿਜ਼ਮ ਸਾਡੀ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹੀ ਫਿਰ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਨਿਕਲਦੀਆਂ। ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਰੰਪਰਾ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ, ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਟਾਈਮ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਾਂ ਸਪੇਸ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਗੋਲਾਕਾਰ ਹੈ, ਸਾਈਕਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਸਤਯੁਗ ਸੀ, ਫਿਰ ਤ੍ਰੇਤਾ ਆਇਆ, ਦੁਆਪਰ ਆਇਆ, ਫਿਰ ਕਲਯੁਗ ਆਇਆ, ਔਰ ਖ਼ਤਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਾਈਕਲ 'ਚ। ਕਲਯੁਗ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਫਿਰ ਸਤਯੁਗ ਆਉਣਾ ਹੀ ਆਉਣਾ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ ਘਟੇਗਾ ਉਹਦੀ ਕਥਾ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸਾਈਕਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੱਲਦਾ, ਉਹ ਰੇਖਕੀ ਹੈ, ਇਕਹਿਰਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਸਾਈਕਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੂਜਾ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਦੇ ਕਨਸੈਪਟਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਫਰਕ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਜੀਵਨ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਿਆ, ਸਾਡੇ 84 ਲੱਖ ਜੂਨ ਦਾ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ 84 ਲੱਖ ਜੂਨਾਂ ਭੁਗਤਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਰੰਪਰਾ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਲ ਵਜੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਜੀਵਨ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਉਸ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਜੀਵਨ ਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮ ਕਰਨੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਆ। ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਐਡਮ ਤੇ ਈਵ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਵਰਜਿਤ ਫਲ ਖਾਣ ਦਾ, ਸ਼ੈਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਕਹਿਣ 'ਤੇ ਉਹ ਫਲ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਔਰ ਉਹ ਜੀਵਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਜ਼ਾ ਵਜੋਂ ਮਿਲਦਾ। ਇਹ ਅਸਲ 'ਚ ਬੇਸਿਕ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਸਾਡਾ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਅਤੇ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ 'ਚ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੀਵਨ ਸਜ਼ਾ ਵਜੋਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਲ ਵਜੋਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਸ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ, ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਫਿਰ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਵੇਦਾਂਤ 'ਚੋਂ ਲੈ ਲਈਏ, ਵੇਦਾਂ 'ਚੋਂ ਲਈਏ, ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਫਿਰ ਕਰਮਾਂ, ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਆ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ, ਉਸ ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਫਿਰ ਜੁੜਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਜਿੰਨੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ, ਚੰਗੇ ਕਰਮ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਤਦ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਸਕਾਂਗੇ। ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਫਿਰ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ, ਗੁਰੂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਕਰਦੇ, ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ। ਇਹ ਬੜੀ ਕਮਾਲ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗੀ ਕਿ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦਾ ਸਿਰਜਣਹਾਰ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਪਾਰ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਹੈ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ, ਉੱਥੇ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਕਹਿਤਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ। ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਜਨਾ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਰਚਨਾ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦੀ ਰਚਨਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇਵਤਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਦੇਵਤੇ ਆਪਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਿੜਦੇ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਤੇ ਦੇਵਤੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਵੀ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਖਾਸ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਵਤੇ ਜੁੜਦੇ ਆ, ਔਰ ਦੇਵਤਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦੀ ਸਾਜਨਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ। 10 ਬਾਂਸ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਕਿ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਦੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਰੀਚ ਹੈ, ਅੰਗਰਿਸ਼ ਹੈ, ਅਤਰੀ ਹੈ, ਪੁਲਤਸਿਆ ਹੈ, ਪੁਲਾ ਹੈ, ਕ੍ਰਿਤੂ ਹੈ, ਭ੍ਰਿਗੂ ਹੈ, ਵਿਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਟ ਹੈ, ਵਕਸ ਹੈ, ਨਾਰਦ ਹੈ। ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਤਰੀ ਦਾ ਜਨਮ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ 'ਚੋਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਔਰ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ 'ਚੋਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੋਮ ਹੈ, ਸੋਮ ਚੰਦਰਮ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਸੂਰ ਹੈ, ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਮਹਾਂਭਾਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਗੀਤਾ ਦੇ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਉੱਥੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਲੜਾਈ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਚੰਦਰਮਾ ਅਤੇ ਸੂਰਿਆ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੋਸ਼ਨੀ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਅਤਰੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਤਪ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੂਰਿਆ ਦੀ ਅਤੇ ਚੰਦਰਮਾ ਦੀ ਰੋਸ਼ਨੀ ਵਧਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ। ਉੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਦਾ ਸਿਰਜਣਹਾਰਾ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਦਾ ਸਿਰਜਣਹਾਰੇ ਦੇਵਤੇ ਅਗਾਂਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ। ਮੈਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਰਚਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ 3 ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਹੈ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਮੈਥੋਲੋਜੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਇੱਕ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਰਚਨਾ ਦਾ, ਦੂਜਾ ਸੰਚਾਲਨ ਦਾ, ਤੀਜਾ ਵਿਨਾਸ਼ ਦਾ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਹੈ ਰਚਨਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈ, ਵਿਸ਼ਨੂੰ ਸੰਚਾਲਿਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਮਹੇਸ਼ ਵਿਨਾਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਵੰਡ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਸਗਲ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਅਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਭੂ ਦੀ ਅਨੰਤਤਾ ਦੀ ਏਕਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚਿੰਨ੍ਹਿਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਲਗਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਏਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਵੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਯੂਨੀਕ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਮਸਲਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਹ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਵਿਦਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵਿਗਿਆਨਕ ਕਹਿਣ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜਾ ਹਾਸੋਹੀਣਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਰਿਵਾਜ਼ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਬੜੀ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਿਗਿਆਨਕ ਲਿਖੀਆਂ 'ਤੇ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਦਾ ਅਸਲ 'ਚ ਹੋਇਆ ਇਹ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵਿਗਿਆਨਕ ਸੱਚ ਦੇ ਕੁਝ ਭਾਗ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਪਾਰਟ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੰਤਮ ਸੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਪਰਮ ਸੱਚ ਮੰਨਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਏ, ਅਤੇ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਦੀ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੇਓੜਕ ਸੱਚ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਨੱਕੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੀ ਲਗਾਉਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਟੋਟਲ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦੇ ਸੱਚ ਨੂੰ ਅਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਭ ਸਕਿਆ, ਉਹ ਜੇ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ ਲੱਭਣ ਦੀ। ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਇਹ ਧਾਰਨਾ ਬਣਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਤੋਂ ਅਗਾਂਹ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਉਸ ਸੱਚ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਸੱਚ ਤੱਕ ਅਜੇ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਨੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਣਾ ਹੈ। ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਇਹ 'ਚ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਣ ਦੀ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਧਾਰਨਾ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿਗਿਆਨਕ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ 'ਤੇ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਅਤੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਸੱਚੀ ਹੋਣ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਮਾਣ ਪੱਤਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਦੇਣ ਦੇ ਰਾਹ ਤੁਰ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਆ। ਪਰ ਸਮਾਂ ਮੰਗ ਇਹ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਰਵੱਈਏ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਰੋਸ਼ਨੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਪਰਖਿਆ ਜਾਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ 15ਵੀਂ ਸਦੀ ਦੇ ਅੰਤ ਅਤੇ 16ਵੀਂ ਸਦੀ ਦੇ ਆਰੰਭ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੱਛਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਰਤਾਰਿਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਭੇਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਨ ਲਈ ਵਿਗਿਆਨਕ ਢੰਗ ਅਪਣਾਏ ਜਾਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਸੀ, ਥਿਊਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਨਾਲ ਲੈਬੋਰਟਰੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਜਰਬੇ ਦੀ ਕਸਵੱਟੀ 'ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਪਰਖਿਆ ਜਾਣ ਲੱਗਾ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਤੀਜੇ ਮੈਥੇਮੈਟਿਕਸ ਦੀ ਸਹਾਇਤਾ ਨਾਲ ਸੂਤਰਬੱਧ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ। ਇਹ ਉਹ ਸਮਾਂ ਸੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਪੂਰਬ ਦੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਪੈਰੀਂ ਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਸੁੰਦਰਤਾ, ਬੇਅੰਤਤਾ, ਗਤੀਸ਼ੀਲਤਾ, ਸਜੀਵਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਵੰਨ-ਸੁਵੰਨਤਾ ਦੀ ਅੰਤਰੀਵ ਏਕਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ 'ਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਮਿਲਦੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਕਵਣ ਕਹਾਂ ਵਿਚਾਰ, ਵਾਰਿਆ ਨਾ ਜਾਵਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ। ਪਵਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਣੀ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਲਈ, ਜਾਂ ਗਗਨ ਮੈਂ ਥਾਲ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਰਾਜਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰੀ ਕਰ ਗਏ, ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਲਿਹਾਰੀ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਵਸਿਆ, ਤੇਰਾ ਅੰਤ ਨਾ ਜਾਈ ਲਖਿਆ। ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ 'ਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਤੁਕਾਂ ਮਿਲਣਗੀਆਂ। ਅਤੇ 17ਵੀਂ ਸਦੀ ਦੇ ਆਰੰਭ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੱਛਮ ਦੇ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮਾਦੇ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਪਦਾਰਥ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ, ਅਤੇ ਊਰਜਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਨ ਜਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਣ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਨਿਖੇੜ ਕੇ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ। ਕਾਰਟੇਜ਼ ਦੀ ਨਿਖੇੜ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਸਟ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਆ। ਵਿਗਿਆਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਭ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਜਾਨ ਅਤੇ ਵਿਯੋਗਤ ਨਜ਼ਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ। ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਵਰਲਡ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੇ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦੀ ਹਰ ਰਚਨਾ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਬੇਜਾਨ ਵਸਤੂ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਥੇਮੈਟਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਟ ਅੰਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਂਗ ਤਸੱਵਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵਸਤਾਂ ਦਾ, ਅੰਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਜੋੜ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਮਕੈਨਿਕੀ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਦੇ ਅੰਗਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬੈਠੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬਾਨ, ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਦੀ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦਿੱਖ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੰਗਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੋੜ ਵਜੋਂ ਵੇਖਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਲੱਤ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਬਾਂਹ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਆਇਆ ਦਿਲ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਸੀ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਵਾਂਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਖਿਆ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਤੋਂ ਅਗਾਂਹ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਸਮੁੱਚਤਾ 'ਚ ਵੇਖਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਅੰਕ ਵਾਂਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੀ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ 17ਵੀਂ ਸਦੀ ਦੇ ਆਰੰਭ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਪੰਜ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਅਤੇ ਕਬੀਰ, ਫਰੀਦ, ਨਾਮਦੇਵ, ਰਵਿਦਾਸ ਅਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਭਗਤ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਸੰਗ੍ਰਹਿਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਦਿ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਦੇ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ਪਾਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਸਮੁੱਚੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੀ ਮਹਾਨਤਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਵਿਸ਼ਾਲਤਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਪਾਲਣਹਾਰਤਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਇੱਕਮਿਕਤਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਇਕਸੁਰਤਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਲਿਹਾਰੇ ਜਾਣ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸੁਰ ਛਿੜਦੇ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਬਾਣੀਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਕੇਵਲ ਕਰਤੇ ਦੀ ਖੇਡ ਬੰਨਿਆ, ਇੱਕੋ ਕਰਤੇ ਦੀ ਖੇਡ ਬੰਨਿਆ, ਸਗੋਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਤੇ ਦਾ ਆਪਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗਾ। ਉਹਨੇ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਇਸ ਨੇ ਬਣਾਈ, ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਆ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਮੈਥੋਲੋਜੀ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਵੱਖ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਕਰਤਾ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪ ਵੱਸਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੀਆਂ ਕਾ ਆਹਾਰ ਜੀਆ ਖਾਣਾ ਇਹੋ ਕਰਿਓ, ਵਿੱਚ ਉਪਾਏ ਸਾਇਰਾ ਤਿਨਾਂ ਕੀ ਸਾਰ ਕਰਿਓ। ਹੁਕਮੀ ਸਿਸ਼ਟ ਸਾਜਿਅਨ ਜੋਤੀ ਜੋਤ ਮਲਾਇਆ, ਜੋਤੀ ਹੂ ਸਭ ਚਾਨਣਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸੁਣਾਇਆ। ਜਿਉਂ ਸੂਰਜ ਜਿਉਂ ਪਸਰੀ ਸੂਰਜ ਕਿਰਨ ਜੋਤ, ਤਿਉਂ ਘਟ ਘਟ ਰਮਈਆ ਓਤ ਪੋਤ। ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਮਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਈਸ਼ਵਰ ਨੂੰ ਕੇਵਲ ਜਾਤੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਵਿਆਪਕ ਨਹੀਂ, ਸਗੋਂ ਬੇਜਾਨ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵਸਤਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਰੋਸ਼ਨੀਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਆਵਾਜ਼ਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕੋ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਵਾ, ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਓ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਵੀ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੈਂ ਨੂੰ ਈਸ਼ਵਰ ਦੀ ਵਿਸ਼ਾਲਤਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਭੇਦ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਸਮਾਧੀ ਅਤੇ ਭਗਤੀ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਇਸ ਮੈਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੀ ਬੇਅੰਤਤਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਲੀਨ ਰੱਖਣ ਦੀਆਂ ਜੁਗਤਾਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰਦੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੇ ਸਮੁੱਚੇ ਪਸਾਰ ਦੀ ਉਤਪਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਵਾਪਰੀ ਤਬਦੀਲੀ ਅਤੇ ਗਤੀਸ਼ੀਲਤਾ ਦਾ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਮੰਨਿਆ। ਸਾਚੇ ਤੇ ਪਵਨਾ ਭਇਆ, ਪਵਨੇ ਤੇ ਜਲ ਹੋਏ, ਜਲ ਤੇ ਤ੍ਰਿਪਵਨ ਸਾਜਿਆ, ਘਟ ਘਟ ਜੋਤ ਸਮੋਏ। ਅਤੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨਿਊਟਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ। ਨਿਊਟਨ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੇ ਬ੍ਰਹਿਮੰਡੀ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਤਪਤੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਇੱਕੋ ਵਾਰ ਅੰਤਮ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਡਿਫਰ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੰਤਮ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਤੇ ਬ੍ਰਹਿਮੰਡ ਨੂੰ ਅਟਲ ਤੇ ਅਚਲ ਸਪੇਸ ਵਜੋਂ ਉਹ ਤਸਲੀਮ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਤਬਦੀਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੇਵਲ ਕਿਸੇ ਬਾਹਰੀ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਦਾ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਨਿਯਮਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਾਲਣਾ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਾਹਰੀ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਹੀ ਸਮਝਣੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਭਾਵ ਕਰਤੇ ਤੇ ਕਾਰਜ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿਰਜਣਹਾਰਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਅਮਰ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਗਿਆ, ਪਦਾਰਥ ਨੂੰ ਅਮਰ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਗਿਆ। ਇਹੀ ਵਿਸ਼ਵ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦਾ ਕੇਵਲ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਖੇਤਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਬੋਲਬਾਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ, ਸਗੋਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਕਲਚਰ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਅਮਰ ਵੇਲ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਥੱਲੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਆਉਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈ। ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ, ਸਾਰੇ ਵਰਤਾਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਖੰਡ ਖੰਡ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ। ਸਰੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਇਕਾਈ ਦੀ ਥਾਂ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੱਖ ਵੱਖ ਅੰਗਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੋੜ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਖੇੜਵਾਦ ਤੇ ਮਕਾਨਕੀ ਵਿਸ਼ਵ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀਕਾਰ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਤਕਨੀਕੀ ਤੇ ਸਨਅਤੀ ਤਰੱਕੀ ਦੇ ਰਸਤੇ 'ਤੇ ਬੜੀ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਦੌੜਨ ਲੱਗਾ, ਪਰ ਕੁਦਰਤ, ਵਾਤਾਵਰਣ, ਦੂਜੇ ਮਨੁੱਖਾਂ ਤੇ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਖਤਰਨਾਕ ਵਿਗਾੜ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਮਨੁੱਖ ਲਈ ਮੈਂ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਤੇ ਰੱਬ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਅਜਿਹੇ ਵਿਛੋੜੇ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਘੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਭਿਆਨਕ ਆਖਿਆ ਗਿਆ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਘੜੀ ਨਾ ਮਿਲਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਲਯੁਗ ਹੋਤਾ, ਹੁਣ ਕਬ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈ ਤੁਧ ਪ੍ਰਿਆ ਭਗਵੰਤਾ। ਪਰ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਮਨ ਤੇ ਸਦੀਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਸ ਵਿਛੋੜੇ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਸਥਾਪਿਤ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਭਾਈਚਾਰਾ ਨਸਲਾਂ, ਕੌਮਾਂ, ਫਿਰਕਿਆਂ ਆਦਿ ਦੀ ਪਹਿਲ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਕੱਟੜ ਵੰਡ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਰ ਹੋਇਆ। ਕੁਦਰਤ, ਧਰਤੀ, ਹਵਾ, ਪਾਣੀ ਬੇਜਾਨ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸਮਝੀਆਂ ਜਾਣ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ। ਮਨੁੱਖ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਅੰਗ ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਮਾਲਕ ਬਣ ਬੈਠਾ। ਇਹ ਧਰਤੀ ਦਾ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਨਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਸਗੋਂ ਹੁਕਮਰਾਨ ਬਣਦਾ ਗਿਆ। ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਸਾਧਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਸਰੋਤਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੁੱਟ ਤੇ ਸ਼ੋਸ਼ਣ ਦੀ ਅੰਨੀ ਹੋੜ ਲੱਗੀ। ਕਲਿਆਣ ਅਤੇ ਆਨੰਦ ਦੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਮੁਨਾਫਾ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਸਰਗਰਮੀ ਦਾ ਲਾਜ਼ਮੀ ਅੰਗ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ। ਕਲਯੁੱਗ ਪੂਰੀ ਬੇਸ਼ਰਮੀ ਨਾਲ ਨੰਗਾ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਨੱਚਣ ਲੱਗਿਆ। ਕਈ ਥਾਵਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਮੇਗਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੇ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਹੀਰੋਸ਼ੀਮਾ, ਨਾਗਾਸਾਕੀ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਭਿਆਨਕ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੰਜ਼ਰ ਵੇਖਿਆ, 1947 ਦੀ ਵੰਡ ਵੇਖੀ, 84 ਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੰਗੇ ਵੇਖੇ, ਕਤਲੋਗਾਰ ਦੇਖੀ, ਭੋਪਾਲ ਗੈਸ ਕਾਂਡ ਵੇਖਿਆ, ਵਰਲਡ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਦਾ ਹਮਲਾ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਗੁਜਰਾਤ ਦੇ ਫਿਰਕੂ ਦੰਗੇ ਦੇਖੇ, ਖਾੜੀ ਖੇਤਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਹੋਇਆ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਸਿਰਫ ਇਸ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਦਰਤ, ਰੱਬ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣ ਲੱਗੇ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਈਨਸਟਾਈਨ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਪਰਮਾਣੂ ਕਣੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਮੌਜੂਦਗੀ ਨੂੰ, ਇਹਦੀ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਨੂੰ, ਇਹਦੀ ਗਤੀ ਨੂੰ, ਇਹਦੀ ਊਰਜਾ ਨੂੰ ਦੂਜੇ ਕਣਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਆਈਨਸਟਾਈਨ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ 'ਚ ਸੁਧਾਰ ਕਰਦਾ, ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਵਾਪਸ ਮੁੜਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਫਿਰ ਆ ਕੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਖਰਿਆਂ ਦੇਖਣ ਦੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਫਿਰ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਰਾਹ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿਗਿਆਨਕ ਹੈ, ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਿਗ ਬੈਂਗ ਦੀ ਥਿਊਰੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਇੱਕ ਸੁੰਗੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਬਿੰਦੂ ਸੀ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਬਿਗ ਬੈਂਗ ਦੀ ਥਿਊਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਈ, ਔਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਫਿਰ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਫਿਰ ਸੁੰਗੜੇਗੀ ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਬਿਗ ਬੈਂਗ ਕਈ ਹੋਣਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਤੀਆਂ ਬਣਨਗੀਆਂ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਹੈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਲੱਗਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਜੋ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪਹਿਲੋਂ 500 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, 800 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ, 700 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਵਿਗਿਆਨ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਖੋਜਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਫਿਰ ਉੱਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਪਰਤਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਅੰਤਰ ਸੰਬੰਧਤਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਦੀ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਗੁਲੇਰੀਆ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਮਨੁੱਖ ਦੀ, ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਦੀ, ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੱਸੇ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਸੁਣੀਏ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਭਉ ਸੁਖ ਸਾਰ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਪਾਤਾਲੀ ਆਕਾਸੀ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਸਰਬ ਆਕਾਰ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਵੇਦ ਪੁਰਾਣ ਕਤੇਬਾ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਸਰਬ ਵਿਚਾਰ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਖਾਣਾ ਪੀਣਾ ਪਹਿਨਣ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਸਰਬ ਪਿਆਰ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਜਾਤੀ ਜਿਨਸੀ ਰੰਗੀ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਜੀ ਜਹਾਨ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੇਕੀਆਂ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਬਦੀਆਂ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਮਾਨ ਅਪਮਾਨ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਪੌਣ ਪਾਣੀ ਬੈਸੰਤਰ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਧਰਤੀ ਖਾਕ, ਸਭ ਤੇਰੀ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਤੂੰ ਕਾਦਰ ਕਰਤਾ, ਪਾਕੀ ਨਾਈ ਪਾਕ, ਨਾਨਕ ਹੁਕਮੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਵੇਖੈ ਵਰਤੇ ਤਾਕੋ ਤਾਕ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਅੰਤਰ ਸੰਬੰਧਤਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਇੰਟਰ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਦ੍ਰਿੜ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੰਤਰ ਸੰਬੰਧਤਾ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਜੀਵ ਦੀ ਦੂਜੇ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਗੈਰ ਸੰਭਵ ਨਹੀਂ। ਜੇ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਐਨੀਮਲਸ ਦੀ ਬਾਕੀ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਓਨੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਅੱਗੋਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਭੋਜਨ ਦਾ ਮੂਲ ਸਰੋਤ ਫਿਰ ਬਨਸਪਤੀ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜੀਵ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਨੀਮਲਸ ਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਵੀ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਦਾ ਮੂਲ ਸਰੋਤ ਬਨਸਪਤੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਾਂ ਲਈ ਲੋੜੀਂਦੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਆਕਸੀਜਨ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਰੁੱਖਾਂ ਰੁੱਖਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਵੇਲਾਂ ਬੂਟਿਆਂ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਪੈਦਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ 'ਚ ਨਿਰਭਰਤਾ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਵੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੰਕੇਤ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਿਰਕੇ ਹੇਠ ਸਭ ਸੰਤ ਇਕੱਠੇ। ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਤੁਕ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬਿਰਖਾ ਹੇਠ ਸਭ ਸੰਤ ਇਕੱਠੇ। ਰੁੱਖਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੇਵਲ ਖੁਰਾਕੀ ਅਤੇ ਸਵਾਸੀ ਲੋੜਾਂ ਹੀ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਹ ਲੈਣਾ ਜਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਦੀਆਂ ਲੋੜਾਂ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ। ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਕਿ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਸਗੋਂ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਤਨਾਂ ਮਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਠੰਡਕ ਪਾਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਲੋੜੀਂਦੇ ਆਰਾਮ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਥਾਪਿਤ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਬਨਸਪਤੀ ਦੇ ਨਸ਼ਟ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਧਰਤੀ ਦਾ ਸਮੁੱਚਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਸੰਤੁਲਨ ਵਿਗੜਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਲਈ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਭ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਲਈ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਚੇਚੇ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਹੈ। ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਪਾਤੀ ਬਿਸਨਡਾਰੀ ਫੂਲ ਸ਼ੰਕਰ ਦਿਓ, ਤੀਨ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਤੋਰੇ ਕਰੇ ਕਿਸ ਕੀ ਸਿਓ, ਕਬੀਰ ਦਾਤਾ ਤਰਫ ਦਇਆ ਫੁੱਲ ਉਪਕਾਰੀ ਜੀਵੰਤ, ਪੰਖੀ ਚਲੇ ਦਸਾਬਰੀ ਬਿਰਖਾ ਸਫਲ ਫੁਲੰਤ। ਸੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਲੰਬੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ, ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਆਖਰ 'ਤੇ ਜਾਂਦਿਆਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਬੋਧ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੀ ਕੋਮਲਤਾ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਕਰਦਾ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਬਸੰਤ ਚੜਿਆ ਫੂਲੀ ਬਨਰਾਏ, ਇਹ ਜੀ ਜੰਤ ਫੂਲੇ ਹਰ ਚਿੱਤ ਲਾਏ, ਇਨ ਬਿਦ ਇਹ ਮਨ ਹਰਿਆ ਹੋਏ, ਹਰ ਹਰ ਨਾਮ ਜਪੇ ਦਿਨ ਰਾਤੀ, ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਹਉਮੈ ਕੱਢੇ ਧੋਏ, ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਬਾਣੀ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸੁਣਾਏ, ਇਹ ਜਗ ਹਰਿਆ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਪਾਏ, ਫਲ ਫੂਲ ਲਾਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਆਪੇ ਲਾਏ, ਮੂਲ ਲਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਪਾਏ, ਆਪ ਬਸੰਤ ਸਭ ਜਗਤ ਸਭ ਬਾੜੀ, ਆਪ ਬਸੰਤ ਜਗਤ ਸਭ ਬਾੜੀ, ਨਾਨਕ ਪੂਰੇ ਭਾਗ ਭਗਤ ਨਿਰਾਲੀ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਕਰਦਾ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ। ਕੁਝ ਗਲਤ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੇ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨਾ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ।
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for pointing out how Gurbani is not only scientific, it actually goes beyond science. And it bottom line वही है कि we have to live in harmony and in sync with nature. Sara, it's one planet together. Thank you so much, sir. Our next speaker for the day is Dr. Ravinder Kaur, Professor, Director, Department of Microbiology, Lady Hardinge Medical College, New Delhi. She will shed light on an extremely significant contemporary issue, the pollution caused by antibiotics in the environment. Yeah, sure. And by
Hello.
Hello, good evening. I would like to acknowledge all my senior people here. It's working, I think. And I'm feeling equally stupid and funny that at this age I'm sitting and talking when everyone was moving around, but I have some problem right now. Anyways, my point of talking काफ़ी point is over by now because many people have covered what I need to say, but I'll just talk about the microbiological aspect and the scientific aspect of what is happening. Though this reminds me of a time when Badu Sahib Gurdware de aaye se sade the te unna ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ how what it is means to go to Gurdwara and to listen to Shabad and all. The only thing that he mainly said was that when we don't do that, ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ego ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. The ego has to come down. So that is what I feel when we are all the time in our scientific environment, we are in our own ego. We have to realize that holistic life is what is actually needed. And this is something which we realize now, what Dr. Guleria said and even otherwise. Unless you have all the scientific saying, unless you respect nature, unless you respect what is happening around you, you can never be happy and you can never gain what is required. I don't know whether my slides are... Dr. Rehan ने आपको दी होंगी, उनके लैपटॉप में थी. नहीं है, नहीं. वीडियो तो नहीं है, ये तो वीडियो है. डॉक्टर रेहान का लैपटॉप है आपके पास? Just ask him, because that is what he was supposed to do. So I can talk otherwise, but it won't be so interesting, I'm sure. He's outside. So anyways, basically, what I'm going to talk about is how environment has been affected, what is being affected, and how it has actually gone through. और क्या हुआ antibiotics से, whether how they antibiotics or antimicrobials, how they have gone through, and through what vectors, through what means have they affected us. You know, when we say they go from one channel to another, how is that happening? I just want you to understand that. Now, antimicrobials, as we all understand, are basically chemical substances which act against germs. They can be bacteria or they can be viruses. But antibiotics, so antibiotics are the ones which mainly act against bacteria. And bacteria are different from viruses because bacteria can grow on their own and they cause many side effects and they are affected by antibiotics. But viruses are not. So which is one major thing which we have to understand. Viruses need human cells, living cells to grow in, and most of the antibiotics, they do not act against viruses. So hota kya hai, all the time we are taking drugs, antibiotics for viral diseases also, cold, common cold, other things, so which is causing overprescription of antibiotics. And these antibiotics then they are causing more havoc than helping us out. They have over the years helped us, like when there were no antibiotics, people were dying due to diseases. Over the years, we've been protected from many severe diseases due to antibiotics. But now the circle has come around and those same antibiotics are no longer helping us. In fact, people, when they go to hospital for one surgery or some other thing, they end up having such infections that they are not getting cured with antibiotics and they might not come out alive. Dr. So the problem mainly is that this has to be understood. So over the period of time, there is overprescription of the antibiotics. Also, people are not realizing. In India, there are the policies are lax. So, you know, the antibiotics are available over the counter. So everyone is just having all what they want to take, and they don't take it for long because they feel though 3 drugs liye usse theek ho gaya, and then they are not taking more. What that is causing more havoc, because what happens is once you give the drug, I can show you on the thing, it goes into the cell and the bacteria start dying. But thode bacteria reh jate hain which do not die. So the moment you stop the antibiotic not in time, those few bacteria, they overgrow. And they overgrow so much that you cannot control them. So this is what is known as antibacterial resistance, antimicrobial resistance. So this resistance is the one which is coming up. I didn't know what actually I had to address, so I've made it a combination of talking to people who are not scientific, not doctors and others. So I hope you understand when I talk like this. Basically, it is just that the resistance, when they say, it is that the same bacteria which would have responded to your antibiotic now no longer respond. And this is due to our own faults. And why is this occurring? One is the doctors and others are overprescribing. Second is we are taking on our own too many drugs. Thirdly, the huge amount of antibiotics are being given to animals for their protection, to increase the livestock, to increase the breeding. Huge amounts are being given in aquaculture. So to increase the production of livestock in sea or underwater, which can help us. All this, in addition to this, hospitals, of course, we know hospitals में बहुत drugs दिए जाते हैं, but they are given to protect you. But of course, because so many drugs are given to hospitals, these drugs, they are excreted through the urine, stool and everything, and finally they pass on to the sewage. But in hospitals, we have waste water treatment plants. So from that, many of the drugs are lessened, the amount is less, but no one realizes that the maximum amount of contamination is occurring from sewage which is coming from industries. There are no wastewater plants there which are occurring. Even the wastewater plants which are there is a gross discrepancy that these wastewater plants, they reduce the count, no, but they do not, they are not made in a manner in which they can inactivate these antibiotics. They can destroy these antibiotics, so it doesn't help. So basically the production of such wastage of water treatment plants should be there, which can inactivate these antibiotics to such levels that when they come out, they do not cause harm. That is not what is occurring. So the concepts are that we are giving to the animals, we are giving to water, then what we are treating, we are not actually treating. So the whole amount keeps adding on. And where is it going? Either it goes to the water, which is sewage, from there it goes to the water. Now this water could be surface water, it could be rivers, it could be sea, it could be anything. Now what happens is, because there is a lot of water, there will be some dilution. So amount might not be enough, but that place provides such an environment where these all bacteria, they can collaborate. You know, bacteria when they're together. In our body, we have hundreds of millions of bacteria in our intestinal tract. Now these bacteria are not lying silent. All the time they are interacting, and when they are interacting, कुछ अच्छी बात दूसरे को देते हैं, कुछ बुरी बात दूसरे को देते हैं. So to survive, they keep getting more strong. So this is what is the genetic material, the DNA which we say we detect. They pass on from one cell to another. So this passage is all the time occurring in nature. It is occurring in the water levels, it is occurring in the sewage, it is occurring in the soil, and not just this is occurring, it is also changing the environment. Now what happens is the soil. So like I told you, the whole thing, livestock, agriculture structures, everywhere the antibiotics are coming, they're increasing. Finally, they're going into the waterways, to the sewage canals, to toilets, and to landfills, and also to the sewer channels. Now you see there's a big whole, staying together. When they say One Health, this is how we are. Soil, livestock, humans, all of us are interconnected. We are taking vegetables or we are passing out something, that manure is being used to grow the agriculture thing. So similarly, the whole thing, this is what has led us onto the One Health concept, that all of us are together. Nowhere is the humans separate from the streams or from the soil or from the water. So that is how the population of bacteria also is changing. So basically, antibiotics diffuse or antibiotics increase. These are often there in the environment. Like I told you, they pass on DNA or they pass on genes to each other, and the antibiotic resistance genes are the ones which are increasing in the environment. Now these, like it has been seen, and so many bacteria have suddenly started getting resistant. Earlier, for cold and all, we used to take erythromycin, we would get all right. Now it doesn't affect us. Amoxicillin alone you take, it does not affect you any longer. You need to take augmentin, something more. Why? Because we have developed these resistance genes. Now this resistance, it can occur either the bacteria, they go and act in the body by entering into the cell. Some of them join to the cell wall, some of them go inside and change the DNA inside. Or what can happen is that they get inactivated by some enzymes in the body. Now these enzymes, if they are not getting affected, these bacteria will not get inactivated. Or if some genetic material is there which protects the bacteria, they will not get inactivated. So all this happens, like I told you, in our microbiome, in our colon, there are so many bacteria, and they're all the time talking to each other. energy from each other or trying to get security from each other in the manner that only the resistant ones are which are going on. Candida species, fungus, earlier हम कभी नहीं मानते थे fungus bread mold पे होता है, कहीं बाहर पड़ी चीज हम we throw it away. But not that same fungus is causing diseases like we saw in COVID patients. People didn't die of COVID, they died of aspergillosis, they died of mucormycosis, जो रोज बोलते थे white fungus, green fungus, yellow fungus. Why? Because these antibiotics have caused the bacteria to get suppressed to such a level that the fungi which were living, candida lives inside my body, all your bodies, in our throat, in our body, in our cells. So कभी surgery होती है, abdominal surgery, so candida can enter and cause infection. But now it is causing infection at all times. And such candida are causing infection which are not getting cured. And एक चीज हम बताएं, antibiotics बहुत हैं against bacteria, but against fungi we have very few antifungal agents, 4 या 5 agents. तो pharmaceuticals बना ही नहीं रही है सब, क्योंकि इसमें कोई फायदा ही नहीं है उन्हें. तो आप सोचिए कल अब किसी इंक को ट्रीट करने के लिए we have nothing left. And whatever is there, people were dying because of mucormycosis because antibiotic B was not available. Or whatever was available, it was so expensive or it was so toxic that it caused diseases. It caused deaths. So how we are changing the environment. That is what I'm trying to say. Yes? So these main hotspots where this happens is, one could be hospitals, or it could be the animal feeding operations where they do agriculture operations, wastewater treatment plants. In all these places, all these microbes are together and they keep interacting with each other, they keep passing on the resistance genes to each other. So these are the hotspots which we have to take care. Next. Hospitals, still the things are controlled because we are giving antibiotics in controlled manner. Then we are giving in dose manner. Then the sewage that comes out only after wastewater treatment plant to the thing, only after that it comes out. But the sewage, but the rest of the system is annual feeding operations are basically active. There are there are mass feeding operations where they have led on to the pura, like when we take antibiotics, our colon has got bacteria. Same is happening in animals. Animals have their own bacteria inside, which is known as microbiome. Now, by giving all these drugs, we have changed their bacterial systems inside, so which has led on to we are taking milk from them, we are taking their poultry, we are eating from them, eggs we are taking, so many things. So those things are coming back to us from animals, which we have changed because we have fed them with antibiotics. And there is no control over this. There is no policy which is controlling how much antibiotics is being given to control, to help in the livestock and all, which is finally again coming back to us. Next. Same is happening in water. So all this goes on from sewage to our water. In water it remains for long, it remains in fish for long, it remains in other water microorganisms, and finally the whole ground system, groundwater level we are having, which is getting contaminated, and the microbiome is totally changed. So after a few years, what we had earlier, our own children, you can imagine, might not get such a water which they can have. It will be very difficult because we have destroyed or we have spoiled it so much. Okay? Aquaculture I've talked about. Wastewater treatment plants, I've said, the problem is that they are there, but nowhere have they been made in or manufactured in such a manner where they can inactivate antibiotics. They can reduce levels to some extent, which does not help. And these are not being used for industrial places. They are only being used in few places. So this has what has led on to more problems. So these are the different types of hospitals you can get from the general population not using antibiotics properly. You can get from the agriculture, from the poultry, from aquaculture, from industry. They come through manure or they come through wastewater treatment plants, and finally the environment. So finally it is environment, soil, water, air which is getting infected, which we are using all of this. And there is no control over it. Now how do they get infected? Basically the passage is through either water or air or animal vector. See, when we are infected, when we are, like I asked her, when we are wearing mask, we are not transmitting. कहते हैं ना कि अगर आपको infection है तो आप डालोगे तो you will not pass on the infection to another, because whenever you cough or whenever you talk, lots of millions of bacteria are coming out. They will go on to other things. So air acts as a big passage vector for passing on these germs. Next. Similarly, surface water. Here also, because what happens is water is all the time that the big mass of earth is water. Either it can be flowing water, or it can be pond water, or it can be lagoons, or they can be sea. So imagine that they all have aquatic life. So all this is the big center where all these bacteria, all these organisms, all these genes, they are perpetuating. And if we are giving the wrong genes, तो कहते हैं ना कंप्यूटर में गलत चीज डालोगे तो गलत चीज बाहर निकलेगी. So if you are giving the wrong thing, you can't expect anything better. Though nature has its way of controlling, of decreasing, but how much can it control when its own fish are dying, when its own animals are dying, or their animals have to protect themselves. We want them to grow healthy, and we are giving them hormones so that they produce more milk. But the milk has the hormones which we are giving, so you can't blame them. So of course, normally from animals to get infection, we now, like sir said, zoonotic infections are happening. Earlier we never had all these infections, जो अब animals से हमें आ रही है. This is very difficult. God, Babaji, in fact, now you realize when you read, has made nature in such a manner that the animal microbiome is different than human microbiome. Humans go into infection, then is very easy. Animals infection, animals to give infection to humans, they have to change. Only then they can pass on. And they cannot give very severe infection. But now time has occurred when you see they are giving very severe infection. So you can imagine how much damage has been caused. Earlier they were silently suffering, the animals, they would die or they would not have good life. Now they are having good life and they're passing it on to you. Because we have done it. Not just the farm workers, you see they have more infection. Their levels, if you check, the genetic levels are more. Similarly, occurring with water. Air, I've already told you. Air, main dust particles and all, they act a lot in controlling, the bacteria that grow over them, or the genes they collect together. And these dust particles, when they move around, they cause more havoc. That is how they can spread more. Another thing, now another concept like the traveling is increased. International travelers, people are getting infections from remote parts of the globe to this place. Earlier that was not there. So you have to be prepared for that also. They will pass on through air or through water or through whatever. So you are seeing bizarre infections which otherwise you would not have. Ebola, SARS, so many things have occurred. हम कभी सोचते नहीं कि ये होगा. डेंगू बार-बार हो रहा है. क्यों हो रहा है? डेंगू के 4 स्ट्रेन हैं. एक स्ट्रेन से आप एक बार ही ठीक हो जाते हो. Next time you might have the second strain. Second strain से infection to मेरे resistance नहीं मिला. And second strain से when you might get more severe infection. Because the body responds like that. लोग हम मरते हैं डेंगू से because our body is behaving badly. COVID में people died because our body reacted badly. Our immune system reacted badly. So the immune system did not help us. So you can imagine the level that has gone to. The genetic level of our own body has changed our immune system, has changed our, basic levels to be able to fight diseases. And this we are going to pass on to our children. Which is a pity. We have to realize all this. Basically what we see is the cytotoxic effect goes onto the community, environment, either to microbial community, or they change the diversity, or they do the ecosystems also double with it. So the microbial communities I told you, they have changed altogether. Earlier the water microbial community was different, now it is different. The animals was different, now it is different. So the whole community has been changed due to these low level antibiotics, low level chemicals being there all the time. There is never a cessation. What we take out, what we feed, our sewage has never been treated. It goes on. It gets diluted, but low level remains. Over the years, they cause more havoc. Okay? Similarly, the ecosystem. Earlier the soil fungi, soil bacteria, they were helping us in our ecosystem. See, when bodies are buried or anything, plants die, they are controlled by their own soil fungi. They are destroyed, denitrification occurs, decomposition occurs, and again carbon elements come back. Again they form nature, again trees form. That is no longer occurring. So we have changed the ecosystem. Now this function if the soil cannot do, then you can imagine it will not help for plants to grow. That is why what Dr. was saying, to grow trees will become important. Because you want the soil to get back its normal ecosystem. This ecosystem is important. The air around me, I'm used to a certain air. But if I go to some other place where a different air is there, I will get infected. So soil, similarly, it is acting to control us. They say, na, tree ke paas jao, it gives you air, it gives you health, but only if it can grow, only if it can use the this dead particles. Normally, अगर आप mill साफ करो, all the decomposed, all the dry leaves and all, they get decomposed, they become carbon, they become soil. Again, can be used. But now we have changed the ecosystem, which is a very bad thing to have occurred. To change this ecosystem back, you have to, really grow thousands of forests. Only then you will get it. Not just that, we are doing urbanization. So Uttarakhand mein, all urbanization has occurred. That is why all this is occurring, because you have destroyed the trees. So all that has to be brought back. Microbial diversity has said this helps because of the different kind of bacteria honge. They will fight against each other. They will not let the less virulent organisms to come up. But अगर आपने इतने एंटीबायोटिक खा लिए कि आपके स्ट्रॉन्ग वाले जो बैक्टीरिया वो मर गए, तो लेस विरुलेंट जो नॉर्मली डिजीज भी करते थे वो स्प्रेड होना शुरू हो जाते हैं एंड दे कॉज डिजीज. After taking antibiotics, people get diarrhea again. What is the diarrhea due to? Because the candida or the fungus that was inside, जो पहले तो normal, it was helping us by giving us some nutrients or remaining quiet, because उसको आदत है कि ज़्यादा strong उसके आसपास है बैक्टीरिया. जब strong चले गए तो कहता मैं क्यों ना बढ़ूँ, वो इतना grow कर जाता है कि that causes diarrhea, and such a diarrhea which is uncontrollable. People die because of that, post antibiotic diarrhea. People, neonates, they die because of these, we all have candida in our mouth. But बच्चे or the old people who have taken antibiotics so long, उनका पूरा mouth में ulcers हो जाते हैं, white membranes बन जाती हैं, because they are things which were earlier controlled. Now the same things in our own body are getting stronger. And who is responsible? We are responsible. So not just this, like I told you, basically the microbiome has been changed, and this is known as dysbiosis. And this has finally led on to the developmental defects, allergies which we are getting more often, metabolic diseases which are occurring. Then also growth rate has decreased, reduction in fertility is there. All this has occurred because of the microbiome change. Okay? So what are we basically, we have to realize why this is occurring. I told you, either the policies are such which are not controlling well, incorrect use of antibiotics, or inappropriate prescribing is there. We can change by already controlling the manure, controlling the waste production, or the wastewater treatment plants, if they are manufactured in such a way that we see that they destroy the antibiotics rather than just decreasing them. Okay? So now the global action has taken place by which, they are addressing antibiotic pollution and antimicrobial resistance by a method in which they have a global plan has developed, WHO global plan, which is focusing on surveillance, which means that you try and test which bacteria are present, how many of them are present. Stewardship, that is you try and control. No faltu antibiotic will be given. Only antibiotic which is required will be given. Right dose, right time, only for the right disease the antibiotic is given. So this is a form of stewardship which we are doing now in hospitals. Innovation, that is newer things should be tried. Pharmaceuticals should make newer antibiotics, only then we will have. Otherwise, the old antibiotics are no longer going to be effective. Okay? So finally, Southeast Asia region has another problem, that like what Dr. Saab said, that we have too many pharmaceuticals here manufacturing diseases, manufacturing drugs, but they are also taking out a lot of sewage. They are also taking out a lot of blood, which is causing us more problems. So, instead of being happier for that, now the government is focusing on monitoring antibiotic pollution and antibiotic ADR policy. And the 2017 National Action Plan of Antimicrobial Resistance has been developed based on the WHO plans. And this is based on mainly again on the One Health aspect. Canada, India, Europe, they are all member states. You can see Canada has got control in human medicine, livestock, aquaculture. India has control only in human medicine, few in aquaculture, nowhere else. Europe has more control. So all these, they are all developing, because this is a joint program, global action program, in which India is participating. And finally, we are going on to the next. It's the One Health program, which means that you cannot help only humans. You have to help animals, you have to help trees, all together if you take care, sewage, air, water, only then you can think of progressing and think of reducing this by increasing the societal engagement and innovation policy. I think it was a big repeat of everything.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very lucid. And next time I pick up my moxycycline, I'll think twice whether I need it or not. नहीं नहीं not at all. And हाँ मैम बबूल अभी तक तो बो रहे थे तो आम तो नहीं मिलेगा अब आम बोने पड़ेंगे पहले. Apple a day then. That's useful advice. We are also happy that Shri Jaspreet Singh Karamsar, who's the chairman of Dharam Prachar Delhi Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, is also here with us. We extend a very hearty welcome to him. And joining us now is Ms. Mamita Kaur, who is a third year BMed student at the University of New South Wales, Sydney, Australia. She's passionate towards medicine with a cause and co-founded Mediflo 3 years ago. And she will now speak to us online from Sydney. We'll talk about the success story of Mediflo, a step towards eco-pharmacovigilance. Please. And I think
Thank you very much. I'm honored to have the opportunity to be a part of this conclave, especially from halfway across the world in Australia. I begin by acknowledging the Bidjigal people, traditional custodians of the land from which I'm joining you all today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Like experts and dignified speakers before me have emphasized the effects of environmental pollution, primarily from a pharmaceutical point of view, I strongly resonate with the idea that improper medical safety practices have the potential to jeopardize our Mother Nature. The well-being of our biosphere is greatly dependent on how its various organisms interact with one another and their surroundings. To summarize the magnitude of how pharmaceuticals impact our environment by hindering these interactions that are so vital to biodiversity, it becomes essential to identify the sources that these drugs and medicinal waste trickle into our ecosystem. The entry of pharmaceuticals into our environment can be traced to three major sources. The first being patients, patient excretion of drugs and its metabolites, and of course, through improper public disposal practices like trashing and flushing of drugs. This introduces drugs into the sewage and inevitably into the waterways. Household and hospital disposal of pharmaceuticals further leads to a pathway of aquatic contamination, threatening marine life, and even causing antibiotic resistance. Our second stakeholders are healthcare practitioners, who often tend to overprescribe. Overprescribing of drugs encourages wastage at the level of the patient and only adds to unsafe drug disposal practices. The third stakeholders are pharmaceuticals and their manufacturing units, which directly release pharmaceutical byproducts, waste, and untreated wastewater into our major waterways. In addition, municipalities and city sanitation departments can further aggravate the problem. That is, if they practice unsafe disposal practices like open landfill dumps, which are predominantly used in developing countries. Also, keeping in mind that there are certain limitations in the efficacy of sewage treatment plants, it has been noted that most drugs have a removal rate between 30 and 60%, and some drugs aren't removed at all. Evidently, this further adds to the problem, rendering that we ultimately consume these drugs in small quantities along with potable drinking water. So in order to counter these problems and even reverse the damage, we need to hold each of these stakeholders accountable. Now, on one hand, we can implore pharmaceuticals to adopt environmentally conscious manufacturing and disposal practices, while on the other hand, we can choose to explore ways that radicalize the manner in which people like us treat their environment. This can be done by generating awareness on rational drug use, educating proper public disposal practices, and even deterring healthcare practitioners from overprescribing. However, there is one approach that stands out to be the most promising in terms of transforming attitudes in patients, and that is participating in drug take-back programs. Drug take-back programs provide a safe, convenient, and responsible means of disposing prescription drugs, while also educating the general public about the potential of abuse of medications. They not only advocate eco-pharmacovigilance, but also reduce the burden of manufacturing of drugs and the financial burden on the healthcare system. To summarize the success of these programs by far, I've compiled data over the past 20 years. Between 1996 and 2016, approximately 50% respondents reported to having medicines stacked up in their cabinet. Of course, that sounds familiar. Over time, one can see that the percentage of drugs that were being thrown out in the trash or being flushed out of the house has significantly reduced, and it's safe to assume that most have gone towards drug take-back programs, given the whopping increase in their acceptance from a mere 1.4% to 11% in a period of 20 years. Extrapolating from this idea, and keeping in mind the success of drug take-back programs in the Western world, I was convinced that such a model would do wonders and lead to palpable change in the Indian scenario. The concept of Mediflo was conceived in 2019, and in only 3 years, we were able to associate ourselves with wonderful donors and volunteers that resonated with our cause. Here we can see one of our most active volunteers, Mr. Ravinder Singh, spreading the word to donate unused medicines at one of our collection centers. Here we can also see Mrs. Gaganpreet Kaur and Mr. S.B. Singh, a wonderful couple who volunteer in managing operations at 2 of our collection centers. Our active collection centers act as channels to hundreds of direct and indirect beneficiaries, like patients, charitable dispensaries, hospitals, and even health checkup camps. Here, medicine drop boxes, like the one you can see on the screen, are installed so that people can donate medicines they no longer want to use. We can see an overview of the process from the moment someone puts a medicine in the drop box. Usually by the end of a fortnight, these medicines are collected and dropped off to our segregation centers, where they're classified as the expiry and drug class and are subsequently ready for dispatching. Like I said before, segregation of medicines is done by volunteering pharmacologists. The expired medicines are disposed of according to WHO guidelines, while the non-expired quality medicines are further redistributed to partner dispensaries, hospitals, and even patients directly. Unexpired drugs are also made available on our website, where patients can visit and upload a valid prescription to have their drugs delivered to their doorstep. On an average, about 50 kilograms of medicines are collected each fortnight, out of which 30% are expired and disposed of according to guidelines, and the remaining 70%, which are unexpired, are redistributed among the masses. Over the past 3 years, the total amount of medicines disposed of is approximately more than 1,000 kilograms, and the total amount of medicines that have been redistributed have been close to 3,000 kilograms. These numbers have, of course, been affected by the COVID scenario, but that definitely hasn't stopped us. Apart from its ecological benefits, a drug take-back program like Mediflo also helps us document the drug classes of donated medicines, so we can gauge and understand the trends in the use of medication among patients. The most commonly donated drugs are usually for chronic metabolic illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, and even heart failure, suggesting that there is poor compliance in the treatment prescribed to patients. So Mediflo helps us address this aspect by encouraging patient compliance and adherence to treatment plans, which inevitably lead to better clinical outcomes. To summarize, the collective impact of Mediflo has been such that it definitely prevents the non-therapeutic exposure of medicines that goes into the environment. It not only mitigates the shortage of medicines among masses, but also makes it affordable and accessible for all. And of course, we do believe in reducing the financial burden on our healthcare system. I'd like to conclude by appealing to each one of you sitting in the audience this evening. Please do not let medicines sit idle in your cabinets. If you no longer use them, feel free to donate them to us. If they're expired, we'll ensure to dispose them off safely in an environmentally conscious manner. And if they aren't expired, then we'll ensure to circulate them to people who need them more. That's all from me. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mamita. That's very interesting and a wonderful initiative that you have taken, as in Mediflo. And I hope, I don't know whether we have something of this kind here in India as well. Oh, it's here, not. Okay. It's running here. Okay, that's one. Oh, that's amazing. I think then we need to circulate the information more, because even I have been wondering, I've been asking my doctor what to do with the medicines that I have at home. Yes, yes. I think we can put it on social media also. Give it to the younger generation, students and all, and they can circulate it. Yeah, please. I will keep it in my college. I teach in there. I'll keep it there. Thank you so much. I think we really need that. Yeah. Oh, and now Dr. Jaspreet Kaur will speak to us. She's a dental surgeon and she will enlighten us about Green Dental Clinic, which she rightly believes is the need of the hour.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Jaspreet Kaur. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation for the speakers before me who enlightened us so much. And as the last speaker of the day, I do not just have the challenge of keeping you engaged for the next 10 minutes. I also have the challenge of talking about my topic and extending its importance to you. So what exactly is a green dental clinic? When we talk about a green dental clinic, it is an eco-conscious global movement that serves towards reducing the waste that is generated and producing a holistic treatment approach towards our patients and generating a holistic practice. So there are a few interesting numbers that I would like to bring forth. So when we talk about an average dental clinic, in a study by Krishnappa et al. In 2005, he found that every single dental clinic in a major metropolitan city generates about 41,500 kgs of infectious and 8,300 kgs of recyclable waste. Now, we are in a country where we have the maximum number of dentists in the world. That means that we are generating the maximum amount of dental waste that we possibly can. So as Dr. Rehan rightly said, that we are generating the maximum amount of medicines, but we are also generating the maximum amount of waste. And that is the same with us. We have the maximum number of dentists in the world, but we are generating the maximum amount of waste too, maximum of which is supported or is contributed by oral surgeons, which I am one, and prosthodontists as well. So not just the waste that is generated, even the suctions that are used in the clinic, they use up to 2.5 to 5 liters of water every minute. That means about 1600 liters of drinking water is going down the drain every time you go to a dental clinic in each day. That is a lot of water that you're wasting, isn't it? Not just that, we also use the maximum amount of patient covers, chair covers, a lot of light covers, the covers for your instruments. We are the ones who generate maximum of those. So when we talk about all of this, the numbers become quite staggering. So I've compiled the recommendations that we can use in every dental clinic into the form of 5 Rs, which are reduce, reuse, recycle, reassert, and rethink. I'd like to reassert the importance of preventive oral health care. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to maintain your oral hygiene. Because if you take care of your oral health, you need not come to us and we need not be generating so much of waste, right? And if you are taking care of what has already been provided to you, that means that you don't need very extensive and longer treatments. Not just that, you can use biodegradable bamboo brushes. You can use biodegradable bamboo brushes with silk threads. You can even use a silk floss, which can be provided in a recirculable glass container. When we talk about reducing our waste, we can shift to a paperless dental clinic. Now, some of the slides and the pictures may not exactly be in the order that I'm speaking because I'm not exactly controlling it, so please omit my So when we talk about reducing the waste, we can use solar panels. Solar panels, not just to augment your clinical electricity, but possibly to go off the grid completely. You can use low flow faucets, you can use dimmer lighting systems, you can use a number of things to reduce your waste and cut it down drastically. There is no need to use paper and pens these days. You can go digital, use digital patient management platforms, and that will be easier for them to schedule their appointments and for you to manage them as well. Move towards digital impressions. Digital impressions, you know, you have intraoral scans these days. You need not go to a dentist and get a whole impression made by using those bulky materials which go into your mouth, cause you to possibly vomit, and cause you a lot of discomfort. We have a wand-like thing which goes around, takes an impression of your oral cavity, and voila, we have a digital impression. The digital impression not just helps you, it helps us because we need not go through the intermediate steps of making a prosthesis for you. You can come in, you can tell us, oh doc, this is the type of prosthesis that I want, these are the kind of teeth that I want. You can see them on a computer and you can tell us, oh, I want it to be changed like this, I want the color to be altered like this, I want the shape a little different, I want it to come a little forward, and that makes the whole process easier. We need not even fabricate it. You go into the computer, you set in the software, you design your prosthesis, and it takes a 3D printer and it fabricates it all out. You're just reducing the waste that is being generated at every step. You can recycle the waste that are generated, use an amalgam separator. You know, 50% of the mercury that is there in your water, it is because of the silver fillings that you have in your mouth. So most of it goes into the drain, and there it is not collected, and it contributes towards a very high level of mercury that is there in your water. Now, all said and done, all of these changes cannot be done in one day. It cannot be a drastic change. We have to be smart about it. This was the digital workflow that I was talking about, that when you come in, you have a digital platform where you record, where you save your records, you have a treatment planning software, you have a digital smile design, you can make intraoral impressions and deliver a digital prosthesis to your patients. Next. Now, all said and done, the waste management cannot be, the waste generated by a clinic cannot completely be zero. So we need to segregate it and we need to divide it accordingly so that it can be sent for treatment. And all of these changes need to be achieved in a smart manner. Smart so that you can, changes which are simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So we cannot go from a simple dental clinic to a green dental clinic in a day. Sikkim did not achieve organic farming in one day. We saw what happened in Sri Lanka. So a transition is made gradually in a step-by-step manner over a period of time with measurable steps which are achieved in a specific amount of time. Now, I would like to conclude by saying that as long as you're green, you continue to grow. And as soon as you turn ripe, you begin to rot. So thank you for your patient listening, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jaspreet. That was indeed very enlightening and very short, crisp, and very precise. And I think the small steps will go a long way in working towards a greener greener environment, greener earth. And we did keep 10 minutes for discussion, but I think we can have the discussion as we see the exhibition at the back. And so one is one health, and the second is let's plant a forest. And of course, the third, small steps will go a long way, and the Mediflo, and the antibiotics. Lots and lots of takeaways today. Right. Exactly. मैं क्या करूं? No, each one of us has to be that change actually. हाँ जी. अच्छा, okay. हाँ जी, कोई आप में से भी कोई कुछ कहना चाहे, बोलना चाहे तो you can most welcome to come here, or maybe we can take the mic to the booth.
I think I'll suggest a way out. Yes. Way out is you can enjoy good tea and snacks and talk informally. And I request Dr. Jaspreet Singh, our General Secretary, to say a few words by way of thanks. Please.
Good evening, everybody, and we had a very, interactive session in the sense that, especially for me, it was very informative. और जो डॉक्टर गुलेरिया गल करके गए ने, how we can integrate, the environment consciousness by, the humans, animals, taking them as one health, as ma'am was mentioning repeatedly. And then I was really impressed by the lecture by Dr. Ravinder Kaur, who talked about so many things and gave us, the awareness that, it's quite, it's true with me also that we take some medicines when we are okay. We think that we should not take the rest of the medicines and just throw them away. That it's not that we are damaging ourselves, we are damaging the environment as well. So therefore, there were many takeaways, as Dr. Harmeet was saying, that kya takeaways hain. One, of course, is the One Health. The second, which ma'am mentioned, and then of course, how we can preserve our environment. All speakers were very impressive. And again, the youngest doctor, she spoke about, how we can do the waste management, especially in the dental clinics, and what is the role. I think each one of us has a very specific role in this. It is not that only the doctors should discuss this issue within themselves. जिस तरह डॉक्टर रवेल सिंह भी कह के गए ने कि गुरबाणी दे विच एक पूरा कॉन्सैप्ट है इन्वायरमेंट का, कुदरत का. इनफैक्ट होल गुरबाणी अगर तुसी गुरु ग्रंथ साहब ਨੂੰ देखो तो it is an ode to nature. अलंकार खुद कुदरत दे विच अपने आप ਨੂੰ ਸਥਾਪਿਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, and then if we do the damage to that environment, we are doing damage to that Almighty. So therefore, it is very important, and देग तेग फतेह वाला भी ਜਿਹੜਾ concept है, देग ਦਾ concept ही है कि ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ ਹੀ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਜ਼ਿਊਮ ਕਰੀਏ ਔਰ ਦੂਸਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰੀਏ. ਔਰ ਤੇਗ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਅਗਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਮ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੇਗ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ. But environment consciousness is very strong concept, and I express my gratitude on behalf of Bhai Veer Singh Sahitya Sadan, Dr. Mahinder Singh Hori, बड़े डाइवर्स ने अपने टेस्ट ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਚੱਲ ਹੀ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੌਪਿਕਸ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ ਦੇ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰ ਦੇ ਔਰ ਹੁਣ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਮੈਂਟਲ ਕੌਨਸ਼ੀਅਸਨੈਸ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਬੜੇ ਕੰਪਰੀਹੈਂਸਿਵ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡੀਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ YouTube ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਵੈਸੇ ਲਾਈਵ ਸਟਰੀਮਿੰਗ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਹੀ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਬਟ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ these are permanently available for all of us to go through them. We can use them as a source material for our students for to get more education and to spread awareness among the general society. I once again express my gratitude to Dr. Harmeet Singh ji, who has been associating with us not only in the Sikh institutions but also in the University of Delhi, and all of you, especially Dr. Grewal. When he spoke in the beginning, he set the tone for the entire day's workshop which was to come, and Professor Guleria was really the speaker of the day. He spoke so well, and I'm sure each one of us benefited from that. And this will be available, Dr. Saab, on the YouTube. This will be permanently available on the YouTube, and we can make use of this. Thank you very much once again. And everybody is invited for the cup of tea. Thank you.
You enjoy a cup of tea and also go through the slides on Guru Tegh Bahadur. Let me say, we, because of Dr. Manmohan Singh, do these things in academic manner. We celebrated 550th Prakash of Guru Nanak with lectures. First lecture by Professor B.N. Goswami. Guru Nanak in the eyes of the artist. Guru Nanak को देखा किसी नहीं, आपने देखा ना भजन करता. Dr. Manmohan Singh presided. Last was by JPS O'Brien. He is old, unwell, still he came. And the concluding was in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. But one thing you will happy to see, we brought a sapling of the bay tree of Baba from Sultan Balodi and water from Kali Bay. This is outside. It was planted by Dr. Manmohan Singh and the Dalai Lama together. If you have time, have a look. And please join us for tea. Thank you very much again. And Madhuri Chawla, I forgot to thank my colleague. She has been great help. Thank you, Madhuri.